Hello and welcome to Rantzerker 04. I am Disappoint. Today we are joined by, well, not actually really joined by, but we will be discussing I Brave the World. That's correct, right, Karen?
Brave the World.
Brave the World. All right, Brave the World, who's done a video on men's rights activism. Although she's previously done videos on libertarianism and anti-feminism, now she's having a go at men's rights activism. So we figured we got to get up in that shit and talk about it.
So, we got to crawl up her ass and see what's there. And perhaps plant a flag and declare the territory ours.
Okay, let's do this thing that we were doing.
So I got to play this now?
Oh, wait. Actually, we have a mailbag item.
Oh.
Surprisingly. Addressed to the Rantzerker. So if you want to send us mail, you can send it at topic@badgerpod.com. That's topic@badgerpod.com. I really appreciate it if you put in paragraphs, and also if you would consider putting Rantzerker in the subject line of your email. That's also appreciated. V has made an inquiry. Dear Alison, respectively.
Okay, I think that means respectfully. He's Romanian. Give him a break.
Oh, no, this isn't V Monroe. I think this is V this is like my I took the name and I reduced it down to a letter so I don't accidentally Okay, dear Alison, respectively. I'm pretty sure an insult and an ad hominem are not necessarily the same. I've heard some spectacular, appropriate insults from you lately, and I kind of think you don't need to apologize for them. Okay, just my input. I might be wrong, but I'm a huge fan and I wanted to mention it. I think you're right. An insult is different than an ad hominem. I'm just sort of uncertain about the rightness of insulting people. But some people have suggested that, well, what I'd say is that if I sense that they're being deliberately stupid, and in a lot of cases I do sense that because I can see I can see that they're smart people.
Yeah.
And they're applying their smart intelligence to being stupid.
Yeah, to defend a really dumb premise.
Yeah. And it's like that's so when I usually say somebody's an idiot, I really should qualify and say they are deliberately choosing idiocy.
Agreed.
And that's my approach. And you can tell that these people are deliberately choosing idiocy in many cases because they are so intelligent about being stupid.
Yeah. A lot of them are very, very good at it, very adept at the gymnastics that it takes to defend stupidity in the face of contrary evidence. But yeah, no, I don't personally have a problem with calling somebody stupid or calling somebody an idiot or calling somebody. I just don't do it very often because I find that if that's all you do, then people don't think that you have an argument. So essentially, I try to keep that to a minimum, and I'll still swear and still use bad language and all of that, right? But I try to keep the name calling to a minimum because it just doesn't come across well, and it feels like name calling is a tool for people who don't have an argument, and that's be the case on either sides of the argument. So you just try to avoid it where you can. So, but sometimes it's irresistible.
Yeah, it is. There are moments where it's just like you just sort of slide into that moment where there's nothing else that really encapsulate how you feel about this situation, this person, and their choice to be deliberately stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to get started?
I think so. I think we'd better because I got like a billion things to do, and this is a 16-minute long video, and if it takes as long to pick apart as Onision's did last week, then we're going to be in big fucking trouble. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's like 8 hours. Although I sense that I'm probably going to get you to stop within the first 3 seconds, but go ahead.
Yeah, the first 3 seconds, that's what the entire thing, the teaser was, the ad was, right? So
I'm incredibly disappointed in them.
All right. Okay. She is incredibly disappointed.
You said you were going to make me stop it. No, you were like, no, stop it. I can guess what you're going to say. What right does this bitch have to be disappointed in the movement?
No, actually, you didn't predict me what I was going to say.
Oh.
I was actually going to look at the word disappointed and what it actually means, because if you break it down, disappointed. So the men's rights movement has failed to appoint her to some position that she thinks she deserves. And my assumption here, and I'm going out of ignorance because I haven't really watched this. I prefer to do these things completely raw. Like I go into it without having seen a damn thing.
Yeah.
But my assumption here is what she is disappointed from by the men's movement is the pedestalization of victimhood and vulnerability as a woman. That's my guess.
I you know what? I just actually think that, like, when you say that you're disappointed in, like, because that's typically a word that parents use with their children, right?
Mm-hmm.
When parents have children, it's the parents who set the standard of behavior and the children who are expected to adhere to the standard of behavior. And when they don't, then you're disappointed in them because you are the one who dictates what the standard of behavior is. So I don't think this is necessarily about her, wanting to uphold her victimhood or anything. It's about this sort of entitlement, I think, on the part of a lot of women to think that they own everything and they get to say, you're not living up to my standards. All right. I have these, oh, sure, there can be a men's rights movement, but it has to be up to my snuff. It has to live up to my standards. And if it doesn't, that disappoints me. I'm really disappointed in you, son. Right?
It's sort of appointing her.
Even though I have no authority over you whatsoever, I owe you owe me nothing whatsoever, I still reserve the right to be disappointed in you. And it just comes across as
it's like she's appointed herself judge and jury. Okay, let's keep going.
Like any reactionary movement, it would not exist in the first place if there wasn't a real problem to react to. And
this is true. This is true. Oh my goodness, she got something right. It's
all right.
I mean, I'm not that surprised by that because she gets several things right over the course of a lot of her videos that I've watched.
Again, like most reactionary movements, it was bound to mutate and become bastardized eventually.
Was that after we passed a whole bunch of legislation and after we got a whole bunch of policies changed and after we made serious inroads in as far as equal division of public spending, and after we solved the problem of male genital mutilation, and then we just took it too far and bastardized it?
Apparently, but wait, I don't remember those things happening. Wait.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not sure what she's referring to. That okay, so let's just see if she explains.
But this fast, factions of the men's rights movement and even some of its foundational principles have been radicalized and pushed towards the brink of absurdity.
Okay, I'm gonna reserve. Okay, I'm gonna unpause it. And I'm gonna see if there's evidence.
Yeah, that was something that I noticed because I did watch a few. Like I think it was actually more than 30 seconds, like a minute in. I was like, okay, well, let's see some evidence of this, and also and more than just some asshole has an opinion on the internet that's unpalatable because there's there's almost no bar of entry for that. Mm-hmm. So find people who are acclaimed who have these opinions. Find people with power who have these opinions. Find these opinions on TV or in mainstream movie in mainstream.
Put them in a university classroom.
Yeah, find laws based on these opinions. All right, well, let's go ahead.
Okay. Something that started out, in my opinion, as a voice for males reacting to the radicalization of the feminist movement and speaking out against.
Actually, Karen, I think I find one problem here. There was a problem before feminism. Men were losing their children before feminism.
Yeah.
Men were paying ridiculous amounts of alimony before feminism. It was illegal for a man to have consensual sex with a woman and not give her the relationship that she wanted afterwards due to breach of promise law. Lynching happened before feminism.
Felony seduction laws.
Yeah, lynching happened. There's all kinds of problems that men had before feminism.
And most of them were based on the same freaking shit that they're based on now.
Yeah, so I think her main problem is she wants men's rights movement to be a reactionary force to feminism when it's a reactionary force to a general. It's like a general indifference to men's situation in society, which is why we can do things like send millions of them off to be ground up into meat and war. But anyway, let's continue.
Quality in specific realms of our society is now in a very rapid decline to the level of radical feminism, which is pretty low. We need safe spaces where women can't trick us by wearing makeup and flattering clothes.
What? What? Okay, no, first of all, I know what she's talking about. There are some groups who consider women's makeup to be a form of deception.
It is a form of deception.
Yeah, well, it is a form of deception, but whatever. But I have never heard of anyone who needs a safe space from women wearing makeup, or any group of men's rights activists saying that men need safe spaces.
For anything. I have heard people in the men's movement say that men need their own spaces, right? That things like men's sheds in Australia and these sort of grassroots things that have been happening over the last 2 to 3 years, they need to stay for men, and they need to essentially just maintain their focus on men. They started for men, and to essentially invite women in is defeating the purpose. They're for men, just like big brothers and big sisters. They pair young men with older male mentors and young women with older female mentors. That's what they do. I
don't think they're a result of wanting to get away from women's makeup, though.
No, they're not. They're not there to get away from freaking even the thing in the military with integrated units. Men aren't necessarily against women being not in combat, not in the military. They just understand that once you introduce women into a group of, because the way men are, it's difficult enough for them to get them to cooperate in high stress situations. It requires a certain kind of bond between those men, and when you introduce a woman into the mix, not only are they not going to leave her behind, they sometimes you do leave a man behind, they're not going to leave her behind, but it introduces an entirely different dynamic between the men when you introduce a woman, which is why all male units outperform in gender integrated units on every single task across the board 100%. Bam, right? It's just how it is, right?
Okay, well, I would take issue with the necessity of that. I will say that this society does not approach this integration in a way that's in any way sensible or intelligent.
It absolutely doesn't. But you can't be like this woman, right? This woman absolutely 100% embraces the idea that men and women are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically different. That they relate to each other in different ways, that men relate to men in different ways than women relate to other women. And, you cannot hold that belief and then say a male only space is like, it's just something that whiny piss babies do.
Yeah, well, the thing is that what really pisses me off is there's this connection between men having an opinion about makeup that it's deceptive. And yes, it is deceptive. You are changing your facial features to appear to be something that they are not.
Yeah, it's just as deceptive as borrowing your friend's Porsche to go out on a date.
Yeah, so it's like that's deceptive. Now, the reality is, like, you don't want to make laws against that kind of deception. You don't want to people buyer beware, right? People do that. So what? But making the connection that men need safe spaces because women make makeup or wear makeup is a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, let's continue, I think.
Okay, because that's straw man number one. Dog, I am going to beat the ever-loving shit out of you. Stop growling. There's nothing out there. Okay, sorry.
But there's something in here.
There's something out there, according to her, and she's just going to sit there and growl.
My girlfriend should pay for all the things because she took my job.
What?
Okay. Wait.
His
So
girlfriend pay for all the things because she took his job?
you mean literally? In which case, yeah, maybe she should pay for all the things because she took his job.
I think so. I think if you know, if she has a job, like I did this with my boyfriend when he was still in school, and for about 6 months thereafter, after he graduated, I paid for all the things.
And you didn't even take his job.
No, and I didn't even take his job. I helped him get a job.
Well, how about this? Maybe his girlfriend should pay for all the things until she gives him his job back.
Maybe, I don't know, but like, why shouldn't a woman pay for all the things? Like back in the day, that was called patriarchal male privilege when men had to do it.
Mm.
So,
yeah, it's a matriarchal female privilege.
Dude, it's like female privilege. There you go. Woo! Go, ladies.
Yeah.
Go, girl.
Lululemon because their pants are made of lies.
Okay, I want to say that this is actually funny. Lululemon's pants are made of lies. Yes, that's actually rather funny. I'm not exactly sure what she's getting at, because I think from what I remember of yoga pants, they don't really hide much. So they show exactly what's there.
Apparently Lululemons are they're made in such a way that they lift and separate, just like a Wonder Bra for your ass. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, apparently they do. And so even if you have like a really lame saggy ass, you can put on a pair of Lululemons and it lies about the state of your ass, right? And like, this is the whole thing. This is like Spanx and bras and all kinds of things that women wear. Hair dye, you know, cover those grays and the whole bit. And oh my goodness, use this cream. And, you know, if you use it every day for the rest of your life, it'll make you look 6 months younger than you are. And, you know, all of this stuff, like there's no, I don't think anybody's bitching about how it's a lie. They're just saying, yeah, women do this.
This is pretty mild. Like,
and it is kind of lying. And, you know, okay.
But these are mild like criticisms, Karen. Like this. Okay, so women may wear makeup. Some guys don't seem to like it. They want to actually have their partners pay for shit. And also Lululemon's ass pants make your ass look nice.
Yeah, even if your ass is fugly. But okay, but here's the thing: is she's portraying it as if these are the issues that, like, these are the primary issues that we have, or these are like major issues that people in the MRM have.
I didn't realize there was was there an initiative to declare Lululemon yoga pants to be lying?
No, I vaguely, the only thing that I recall, you know, and the only reason I know this about Lululemon pants is because I've heard men talk about them in positive ways, like, oh my God, that, like, look at that ass and those Lululemons, look so hot, right? I don't know that I've ever heard somebody, you know, portraying Lululemons as some kind of injustice against men because it's trickery, damn you.
Okay, well, does she have like any evidence of any petitions? Anybody writing their senator to get Lululemon declared?
I'm sure that if she does, she will present it.
Okay, so yeah, like, is this just this situation where people have an opinion on the internet? Because if it's just a situation where people have an opinion on the internet with its very, very low bar of entry, might I point you, Ms. Brave the World, to a show like The View and what goes on, or The Talk, and what goes on with the gossiping bullshit going on there? Because this is all just basically, I mean, this is actually, I don't know. It's just, yeah. People on the internet having opinion versus it going on to TV. I think one is a little bit more acceptable. Like,
oh yeah, it totally is. I mean, like, look at Kim Kardashian and her ass. Oh my God, like, it's just like so gigantic.
Oh, and also this seems to be odd.
You know, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, this also seems to be odd because she seems to be equating this with radical feminism. And I can tell you that radical feminism is a little bit more hardcore than this. Like
Yeah,
this Anita Sarkeesian, regardless of how unfounded and ridiculous her assertions are, and potentially very, very mean-spirited, she is not a radical feminist. Radical feminist.
Even her agenda is more serious than this. It's her agenda is all about violence against women, and and rape of women and murder of women, and I mean, like, she talks a lot about the way women are dressed and stuff, but she doesn't ever talk about the way men are dressed in these things.
Okay, so but what I'm getting at, and I know I'm running over you, but what I'm getting at is that this seems to be more frivolous. Like, she's pointing out things that are frivolous complaints as being indicative that men's rights has a radical edge. It's, well, you know what? If you could gender reverse it and put it in Cosmo, I don't think it's radical. I think it's just sort of petty bitching. And both men and women like to bitch in petty ways. Yeah. Because bitching is fun. Okay, let's I
think maybe that the idea of men bitching about women is so alien to people. Like, just venting, just bitching, right? Like my boyfriend bitching about, oh my God, she just nags and blah, 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 blah. And then, oh, she won't rub my back when I want to, and she makes me wait. And like, then fucking the soup was too hot and blah, blah, blah. And she still hasn't installed that tub faucet yet. It's been 2 months, and
it's just bitching. It's like, people like to bitch about each other. And the thing is that there are certain norms of behavior that both men and women have that can be grating. Like when I'm having an argument with someone else, and my husband comes up and says, well, you could have done this, and this better. And I'm like, I'm infuriated. And then I explain to you the argument, and you say, well, no, you're not a bad person. It's like, you understand what the problem is because you're a woman. And my husband doesn't. I don't need advice how to make something better. I just need someone to tell me I'm not a bad person.
There you go. And, and when my boyfriend complains about, I don't even know if, with the oil prices the way they are, I don't even know if my company's going to be around in the next 6 months and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, just keep at it the way you're doing it, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but you don't understand, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you want me to say? Do you want me to like join in your pessimism? Do you want me to like wring that little black rain cloud out that's over your head? Do you think that that's going to make anything better? Is it going to accomplish anything? No, it's not. I'm just going to say, just do your best. We'll deal with whatever comes. That's what I'm going to say to you. I'm not going to say, you're right. We're doomed. We're doomed. How is that going to help?
Okay, yeah. So it's like, men and women bitch about each other. Like,
it's the differences in communication and the differences in perspective, and it's just petty complaining.
Yeah,
it's not a men's rights issue. Lululemons are not a men's rights issue. Brave.
Yeah, makeup is not a men's rights issue, and I've never seen any petitions or any initiative to do anything about these apparently pressing issues ever.
The only thing that I've seen on a petition, or on something resembling a petition about makeup and things like breast implants and stuff like that, is when some male feminist decided that he wanted to propose a law where if a man who lied about his job or lied about his car or lied about his earnings or lied about he was a secret agent or lied about his education or whatever and had sex with a woman, that would be considered to be rape. But then he went ahead and said, oh, but by the way, all the deceptive things that women do to make themselves more attractive, like breast implants and makeup and really flattering clothes and Spanx and girdles and frickin' foundation garments and dyeing their hair and the push-up bras. That's not deception. That should not be considered deception under this law. It's only the ways that men deceive with, they pull out a wallet and it's, they took out their last $500 from the bank. It's their overdraft. They're completely broke, but it makes them look rich when they're paying for dinner, right? That's rape by deception. But if she's got fucking implants, right? And
that's not.
Yeah, that's not deception.
Okay, all right. So
The only thing that I've ever seen men's rights activists complain about is that double standard.
what I just want to point out is that this frivolous stuff, and like she's making the argument that this makes the stuff that she's pointing out makes the men's rights movement equal to radical feminism.
I know.
That's the argument.
The shit that guys bitch about to other guys at the bowling alley.
Yeah,
And
like I said,
always have, you know, the moment they actually come out in public and speak about it where women can hear it, that makes them radical.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
We must have trigger warnings on all movies with strong female leads.
That's so dumb. That was not even an MRA. That was one pickup artist / traditionalist on Return of Kings. God, was it Aaron Clary? I think it was Aaron Clary. I don't even think he's a pickup artist. He was on a pickup artist site. He's a traditionalist something or other. He's not an MRA. Return of Kings is not an MRA website. It was one guy's opinion about
it. Sounds sort of retarded too.
Well, you know, like I can actually understand, right? Like, I could see his point, right?
Okay.
He hadn't seen the movie, and he was like, I just got some serious worries about this, given what I saw of the trailer and what I heard from all of these people doing the PR for it, that it's a feminist movie. It's a feminist movie. It's a feminist movie, right? I have some concerns, right? That was the basis of that article. And based on all of those things, I would have some concerns. I have since seen it, and I actually quite enjoyed it. I did see some tropes in there that were highly traditionalistic and other, and essentially, traditionalism repackaged as feminism and then vomited out onto the screen in a cascade of male disposability. Okay. Absolutely.
But it was still enjoyable.
It was still an enjoyable movie. And I still really like Furiosa's character, and I still really like Max's character. And I really, really was very, very much, I really liked that the young man who was essentially the turncoat, and joined forces with Furiosa and Max and everybody, right? He was the young, I forget what they were called, but they were the sons of the bad guy, and had been indoctrinated into this horrible, awful, awful system, right? And so, I mean, like, I don't understand how this got so blown out of proportion. And no, even if there were situations where men were like, yeah, no, this is fucking bullshit, right? And I'm not buying this particular movie because this female character, and there have been quote strong female characters that I have had a hard time believing. One of them was Ultraviolet. Do you remember that movie?
I think was that the one with the gratuitous kissing? That was
it had Mila Jovovich in it, right?
Okay, I think I might know it. Well, let me ask one simple question: was he advocating this seriously?
He was. He was saying that he had serious problems with the movie, or he had serious suspicions about the movie given the trailer and all of the PR that had come out about it, declaring it a feminist movie.
So one person had an opinion on the internet. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, even if like I have problems with some female characters that are considered to be strong. Mila Jovovich was wonderful in The Fifth Element. She was wonderful in Joan of Arc. She was wonderful in the Alice movies, the zombie ones, right? Based on the video game. She was great in those, right? But in Ultraviolet, I just couldn't get beyond the latex suit and the 6-inch freaking high heels. How do you fight in those? How do you actually kick ass in heels that I couldn't even fucking walk in?
This being, but as it may, we have gone through 1 minute and 12 seconds.
All right, okay.
If woman no sleep with me because I'm ugly, poor, and not funny, it means that she's a shallow, gold-digging whore who feels entitled to entertainment.
Okay. Still, again, this sort of seems like people bitching about having to deal with the opposite sex, which, you know what? Everybody does it. So let's.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it's indicative of like most of the people in the men's rights movement are not bitching about not being able to get laid.
Or Lululemon.
A lot of the time they're bitching about the double standard where an overweight woman is essentially demanding, the whole anti-fat shaming movement is, it's wrong that you don't find me attractive. It's an injustice that men don't find me attractive. And then when men do find them attractive, that, 1% of men that do, right? Then they're like, you're fetishizing my fat.
Okay. All right. Let me just, we got to get through this. So we can't just pause too long, but I just want to say one thing. If you don't like those areas of men's rights advocacy, just assuming that they exist and there's actually movement, petitions, and people are seriously wanting something to happen from this. If you don't like that, don't engage. Like, it's just, there's so much more that you could help out with, like suicide, the double standards regarding rape and domestic violence, the child custody issues, mental health, prison. Like, there's all kinds of other issues that have a lot more attention and a lot more focus. Well, that you could
look at it this way. Okay, there's this genre of romance novels, subgenre of romance novels called BBW, Big Beautiful Woman, and this is marketed towards women, and it has overweight female protagonists, and it's there so that fat women can feel loved too, and they can feel like they can get a relationship too. Okay, but then on the other hand, you have these fat guys or guys who are unattractive, and it's like, we're going to look at them like scumbags if they use porn, right? They're also scumbags if they look at women in public and don't avert their eyes. And they're also scumbags if they ever hit on someone. And they're scumbags if they ever pay for sex, right? And they're scumbags all the way through. There's not any, it's almost like they're not allowed to even have the sexual gratification of their own hand, because, and then fantasizing about fucking, I don't know, Rebecca Watson behind their eyelids, right? Because that's a crime against women. The very fact that some ugly dude out there somewhere is getting sexual gratification in some way, even if it doesn't involve a real life woman, that's like a crime against women. That's creepy, and it's gross, and it's nasty, and it's awful, and it's bad for women everywhere, right? But we can have a whole subgenre of romance fiction and erotica devoted to make fat women feel better about their bodies and make them feel like they're deserving of love too.
Well, that's fine. Like,
I agree that that's fine. I just don't like the double standard, and I think
no, the double standard is shit. But let's try to get through. Let's see if we can.
Okay.
Let's try. Let's put a challenge as much as possible.
Demise. It was co-opted and perverted and utilized for a divide and conquer strategy that served the power hierarchy. The men's rights movement seems to have done this all on its own, and
see, she doesn't understand the origins of feminism and the reason why feminism became a thing, right? Feminism was not started by the Rothschilds. It wasn't started by the Rockefellers. It wasn't, yes, they pumped money into it because they saw a good thing. They knew a good thing when they saw it, and they pumped money into it. But it wasn't started by that, and it doesn't still exist because of that. It exists because of female nature. It exists because women have spent the last 200,000 years accustoming themselves to being center of attention, the ones upon whose well-being and safety society is intently focused on, right? And therefore, that's how they've made all of these inroads into government. And, that's why we have a panel discussion at the fucking UN where Anita Sarkeesian can argue to censor the entire internet because there's people who tell her she sucks.
Okay, but it might be pointed out that women make inroads into government and all of these places when they play the victim.
Yes.
That's the key. If you don't, you get summarily shown the door, or you get tons and tons of invective against you. Like this is part of a very, very old dynamic of saving the damsel. Like, feminism is essentially just a replication of that. And if this is something that you feel is separating the genders, it's because it's a toxic dynamic between the genders that we need to address. It doesn't, like, the reason why it existed before doesn't exist now. So it's become toxic.
Well,
And that's
even-
what's separating.
Even if she thinks that we're taking too hard a stance, well, how much have we gotten accomplished? You know, look at the results. Look at what are our results, right? Like, how long have we been trying? Since 1978, right? Since the 1970s, we've been trying, and we've been trying in various, very, very, very mild and non-intrusive and.
Well, actually, technically, you can probably go back a century.
You absolutely could, right? But since the 1970s, you know, the men's movement has been a thing, and it's absolutely been, you know, willing to work with women and really being interested in, you know, like just teaming up with feminism and, you know, and maybe, and the entire movement split apart in the late 70s into the mythopoetic men's movement, which teamed up with feminism. It was basically feminism for men, and that's where Jimmy Kimmel and Jason Katz and all of these freaking lunatics come from, who are, you know, running gender studies programs or men's studies programs now, that have 9 out of 12 board members are feminist women like Gloria Steinem and Eva Ensler, right? And then there was the antagonistic aspect of the movement, which was the one that said, you know what, feminism is bullshit, right? And they've been vilified right from the very beginning, and it doesn't matter how nice they are, it doesn't matter how placating they are, it doesn't matter how much they say, you know, well, we're not against women, and, you know, and we just kind of object to this one thing that happens to us. We just kind of want to draw attention to it. No, you hate women, you hate women, you hate women, right?
That's what they do. Well, they did it to Gamergate because they can.
Yeah. And so essentially you have this movement that she sees as like highly radicalized and highly polarized and all of this stuff. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how radicalized we are. It doesn't matter how polarized we are. What have we gotten done? What have we gotten done? You know, when Mary Daly was horribly radicalized and polarized, she was banning men from her classroom and advocating that we bring men down to 5 to 10% of the population from her tenured position at Boston College. When Valerie Solanas was shooting people just because they were men and claiming that she has no regrets whatsoever and men deserve everything that's coming to them, and she's devoting the rest of her life to the annihilation of every single male off the face of the earth, which she did, right? Then, and Robin Morgan and all of these other, you know, big feminists went and picketed for her release from prison and called her the first outstanding champion of women's rights, right? Oh, yay! The only thing that would have been better is if Valerie Solanas had cut his dick off. Then we could serve cocktail weenies smothered in ketchup and laugh about it at these protests.
Yeah,
like,
it's
that just like how can she even fucking compare?
Well, yeah, let's actually get some. And the other thing is that in a lot of ways feminists have armed women with a gun legally.
Yes.
And they, you know, in this situation, it seems like she's saying, okay, so the woman has a gun, and we're saying, guys, you got to be careful. And she's saying, well, now you're separating the sexes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because women have guns. All right, let's get through the first 2 minutes at least.
I don't think that the men's rights movement has a lot of credible criticisms of how we interact with males versus females in our society. I think at least half of their platform still maintains logic and decency and merit. But the other half is based on ridiculous assertions that have nothing to do with reality and perhaps stem from hate instead of logic. So I guess I'll start with the positives because...
All right, we got to stop here. All right, let's look at the situation. Women have created a movement that has painted men as blamed and vilified men. And there was enough women who agreed with this to vilify and blame men in aggregate, to create this hateful fiction about men. This is a reality.
For all rape, all violence, all war, all famine, all everything, all exploitation, all slavery, all of it, the whole thing, everything bad that has ever happened, right, is essentially the fault of men.
Yeah. And this is a hurtful, hateful means, not even looking at the potential violence implications. This is emotional abuse. We have government institutions dedicating to making men feel like shit about themselves.
Yeah.
And women were not only able to make this happen, but didn't oppose it. And this is a reality that we are facing. And to me, it's like, when you say that half the men's rights movement is motivated by hate, I'm surprised it's not 100%.
I'm surprised this is not every man.
Yeah, this is what women have done. This is what a critical mass, and we are to blame because we don't stand up against it. If there was enough, why was there not an equal number of women pushing against and saying, hey, this is not fair. You don't say this about my husband. You don't say this about my father. You don't say this about my brothers. You don't say this about my friends and work colleagues. This is bullshit. Yeah. And why didn't we shout these women down?
You know what? You know, one thing that I find hilarious is women were actively resisting this, but not because, well, okay, there were some who actually said, our men trust us to represent them in the sphere that we are in: home, hearth, family, nurturance, community, right? We trust them to represent us in their sphere, which is work, politics, war, the battlefield, all of those places. And we trust our men to do that. And they trust us to do this, right? There were some women who were opposed to the suffrage movement, who this was their rhetoric, right? That there should be trust between the sexes, there should be teamwork, partnership between the sexes, and that if they're going to trust us at home and hearth and with the nurturance of the young, then we should at least be able to trust them at the ballot box and on the battlefield and at, on the job, right? That was laudable, but the majority of women who opposed women's suffrage were opposing it because they didn't want to be eligible for the draft. They didn't want to be eligible to be brigades, and they didn't want hue and cry laws to apply to them. They didn't want to be as liable for their debts as their husbands were. They didn't want to have the same responsibility financially for themselves or their families. They didn't want the responsibilities of citizenship that men had.
Yeah, I just don't understand, like,
so that was self-interest.
How can a woman look at what feminism has created? Like, this institutionalization of marginalizing male victims, and then turning around and blaming men for the very things the very social problems that they've marginalized male victims from being recognized as being victims of. How can you look at this? How can a woman look at this that's been done in her name and not be horrified?
How can anybody read the Declaration of Sentiments and not be horrified?
I mean,
at how it vilifies men.
This is shit that just, like, women have been publicly vilifying men for how many decades now?
165 years.
All right.
Minimum.
This is disgusting. It disgusts me. And the fact that women haven't spoken up in large enough numbers and said, hey, this is wrong, that just disturbs the fuck out of me. I feel betrayed. And believe me, I do not blame, and personally, I do not think that the men's rights, even half of the men's rights movement, feels hatred. They're probably pissed and angry. But hatred and contempt, I don't think so. I don't even think it's half, because I don't hear popular men's rights activists talking with glee, salivating over the thought of mass clitoral extraction, or talking about killing 90% of men, or talking about putting them into camps. That's radical feminism. That's radical militant feminism right there. And I don't hear it.
That's Julie Bindel just this month talking about putting men in concentration camps.
Nor do I hear
on a national news platform.
nor do I hear men talking about making it like poo-pooing the idea that women can even be raped at all. Like, have you ever tried to nail a live fish to a board? How is it even possible? How is it even possible to rape a woman? I don't even hear that. And yet you hear it all the time from women. All the time. How is it even possible to hurt someone who's bigger than you? Well, you know what? You can beat a horse to death because a horse has learned to sit and take it. And so have men. The horse is like over 1,000 pounds. Are you going to argue that it isn't the same when you beat a horse?
Yeah.
Because it's bigger? You know, it's
because it's bigger and it's stronger, and if it actually did get mad, it could kill you, like with one kick.
Yeah, and people who say, well, men are, it's the same principle. Men have been trained since birth not to hurt women. And so have horses been trained not to hurt people. So, and when you're in a situation of high stress, a lot of your reasoning faculties get turned off. So you just respond reflexively based on what you have learned.
Yeah, never hit a girl.
Okay, let's try to get forward.
About me anything, it's that boys are sensitive too. Educating the public about the horror of circumcision is probably one of the best things that the men's movement has done. Circumcision is where sex and violence meet for the first time. There's really no argument for it. You don't take an infant and cut off a functional piece of their body because of some tradition or religion.
All right. Okay, we are on the same page with circumcision, so maybe we can explain something. Can you imagine that people or men who have had that kind of brutality visited upon them without anesthetic might be slightly pissed, might be slightly angry, might be even hateful? You know what?
Can you imagine a man who was circumcised as an infant and who is suffering? Maybe he's just suffering from the loss, the knowledge that he's lost something that's worth having. Maybe he's suffering erectile dysfunction, which ironically, Viagra is 5 to 10 times more often prescribed in America, where the circumcision rate is the highest in the Western world than any other Western country, because rates of erectile dysfunction are much higher. Maybe he's having issues with buried penis. Maybe he's having issues with hairy shaft. Maybe he's having issues with skin tags, or a penis that's asymmetrical now because the amount of tissue that was removed was greater on one side of his penis than the other, and now he's forever pointing fucking east, right? Maybe he's having all kinds of issues with the way his penis looks because he has this massive, huge scar that doesn't look like even your average circumcision scar. Maybe he has complete dysfunction of his genitals altogether. Maybe he had his glands amputated by accident during a circumcision when he was a baby. Okay, now, picture yourself as that man, and picture listening to women just saying in the most blasé terms possible, oh, I would never fuck a man who wasn't cut. I would never, oh my God, I'm not even touching that aardvark. Like, I don't want a man in a turtleneck. I wouldn't even fucking go near an uncut man. That's disgusting.
Okay, exactly. And also, if you recognize the severity of these problems, you can't turn around and say that men's response to the severity of these, marginalize and say, I'm so disappointed in the response. Men are human beings. These are really serious issues. And when you do these things to human beings, yes, they get angry. And yes, they feel hatred. It's a normal human response. And like I said, I'm amazed that it isn't 100%. But let's keep going.
And the only possible health benefit that doctors claim this gives us can just as easily be attained by washing your penis. And to people who say it's no big deal, please watch a circumcision video of an infant. They go into shock. They don't like it. And if they remembered the pain, they certainly wouldn't voluntarily go through that.
Okay, stop again, please. When that infant grows up and becomes a man, the feelings of pain, betrayal, hatred, and anger don't suddenly become invalidated.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Right, so it's okay. Pretty sure if you use that argument after you cut your baby's arm off, you would go to jail. Parental rights. Yes, 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 I think men should have equal parental rights as women. It is a tragedy that a lot of fathers aren't granted equal custody. Although I will note that in a situation where the mother has given natural birth and is breastfeeding, the man can never offer that simply due to biological restraints.
Well, yeah, men can't give birth.
I agree. I agree that when the infant is breastfeeding, that there should be some accommodation made to keep that breastfeeding up. I think best interest of the child should always be part of it. And if that means that the man gets to come over to his ex's house and spend time with the baby, with her there, so that she can breastfeed that child on demand, then maybe she should be prepared to do that. Maybe she should be prepared to allow him to have a part in his child's life. When I split up with my ex, I didn't kick him out of the house, right? I never made him unwelcome and come over any time and spend time with the kids. Like you're still my kid's father. You're still part of their family. If this is their home, if this is their family home, then you should be able to come into their home and visit them, right? Even if they're reliant on me and my boobs to serve the drinks.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, if you're going to acknowledge this benefit to children initially, then you should also acknowledge that at a certain age, the nurturance that men give children is vital to their development as well.
And you should also be willing to say, okay, then if a woman's not breastfeeding, then there's absolutely no reason
for
no reason for 50-50 custody right after birth.
Yep.
Okay.
But once the child is a little bit older, the man can definitely provide for it just as well as the woman.
In my experience, men provide for kids much better than for women, at least in the financial sense. But
all right, let's move on. I mean, that's a piddling point.
Community is only now catching up to acknowledging the male's role in a child's life. Previous studies have either completely excluded males from this scenario, only studying mother to child relationships, or they have overlooked the father's impact. Like there were several studies on Amazonian tribes where the scientists would stop documenting interactions of the parents with the child at sundown, when that was the prime time for the male to step in and be the nurturer while the female slept. There's a great book that documents the unfairness of the perception of fathers in our society called Do Fathers Matter? Spoiler alert, they do. Child support. I've heard of plenty of cases of very wealthy men forced to pay for child.
Incidentally, for those who are listening, that's a good point. And yes, she's very right. There is a bias against seeing fatherhood, not just in human societies, but also we haven't really studied it among mammals very well either.
And we also have this belief somehow that because fathers behave towards their children differently than mothers tend to, that, you know, and one of the most interesting sort of case studies of this would be the Shaytards on YouTube, and you can go look at some of their videos. But the dad is always like, you know, like picking up the kids and chucking them onto the waterbed, or you know, encouraging them to climb like 2 stories up on the monkey bars and doing all of these things. He's interacting with his kids, but he's not cuddling with them. He's not rocking them. He's not singing to them. He's not doing girly things. He's doing very obviously dad things with these kids, and that is vitally important. The different ways that fathers nurture their kids, the different ways that fathers parent their kids, are actually very, very important as a counterbalance to the nurturing that mothers tend to do. Even
if the woman isn't taking care of the child. Okay, education. there has been a huge decline of male enrollment into universities due to the feminization of the public educational system in the West. And the college thing is just a long-term result. The basic foundational problem here is that boys are very quickly losing interest in basic things like reading and the arts because of the way they are taught by female teachers in our school systems.
I think we should just keep going.
Sorry?
Well, I mean, I agree that this is a problem.
I didn't pause it. I was...
Gender neutral push actually hurts both boys and girls in different ways. When there's a doctrine that totally dismisses natural gender differences, everybody suffers. There's a great book called Why Gender Matters that will give you specific stats, data, and scientific findings for what I'm talking about. And I'll actually be doing an entire series on gender differences that will go very deep into all of this. Some other great points are the discrepancy between breast cancer awareness and prostate cancer awareness. Penn and Teller's Bullshit actually do a great episode about this. They kind of say that breast cancer has become like the sexy cancer and prostate cancer is more difficult to market. So again, I don't know if I would credit that to sexism against males, falsification of rape. Yep, false rape claims happen. We should acknowledge that they happen. It's difficult when a rape case to sometimes prove or disprove what happened after the fact without any physical signs. So it's a very, very tricky area, but I do agree that we should acknowledge that false rape claims do happen. Women can be very conniving and vile and can totally ruin men's lives with that kind of accusation. Military conscription. I don't believe in it at all. I don't think men should be forced to go to war. I don't think women should be forced to go to war. And if there are some males in the movement who think because males are conscripted to go to war that females should be too, you should be fighting for nobody to be conscripted.
Why? Why should they be fighting for that? Why should they be fighting for nobody to be conscripted? Why should they be fighting? Why shouldn't they be saying, you know what, let's conscript women too? Because I can guarantee you that the one thing that's going to get conscription off the table altogether is if there is a Supreme Court challenge and the Supreme Court says you cannot conscript men without conscripting women too. That is the only thing that's going to take it off the table.
Well, the other thing is that echo.
Sorry, I can't mute my mic because I'm sharing my screen, and
I don't know if the people in the chat are also hearing echo.
Probably. Why don't you mute my mic? You got control over the mic.
Well, if we actually conscripted women, that would probably be one of the best ways to prevent, to actually really consider war, whether or not we want to go to war. That probably would end war, actually. All right, let's continue there, Karen. Do you need me to unmute? I don't know if I can unmute you. You got to unmute yourself. Ah, shit. This isn't going to work.
Yeah. Okay, now here we go. Okay.
No, what's with this echo?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk about some of the things that the men's rights movement pushes that make me just never want to credit them with anything logical ever again. And I understand that this isn't a unified movement and there's different strands and factions and opinions, but I'm still gonna acknowledge some of the retardedness that goes on. Domestic violence. Yes, I do think we need to acknowledge that there are men who are abused by their female spouse physically. But to claim that it happens just as much as it happens to a female is plainly insane.
It's plainly backed by credible scientific evidence.
There you go. I mean, if you have scientifically, there's significant amount of evidence that it is symmetrical.
There's not only Febert's but bibliography of hundreds of different studies and surveys. There's not only Marie Strauss's work and Suzanne Steinmetz's work and Aaron Pizzey's work and and all kinds of other people's work. There is also, more recently, the Partner Abuse State of Knowledge Project and their meta-analysis of 1,700 different studies that found that 71 point something percent of all mutual partner violence, which is the most common form, is initiated by women, and that found that women committing unilateral violence outnumber men committing the same by up to twice as much.
Okay, so I brave the world, or brave the world. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not true.
Just because it feels wrong does not mean that it's not actually at what's going on out there. And I'm going to tell you something, Brave the World, even before I found the men's movement, I knew one woman who was occasionally slapped around by her male partner. One single woman. I knew 3 men who were not just physically abused by their female partners, but were the ones who went to jail for it, were the ones who got arrested for it, were the ones who found themselves in the dirt with a cop's knee in their back and the cuffs on for it, right? And something crazy, even though they never put a finger on their wives were never arrested. Their wives were never charged with anything. Their wives were the ones who were left alone in the house with these men's children, right? These men's children in the sole care and custody of an unstable, violent, abusive woman. Well, these men are serving a weekend in jail for the crime of getting beat up by their wives. This is not just a men-women issue. This is an issue of children too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see what other conclusions she has.
Now, this isn't because I have a female bias. This is because of observable truths about our biology.
Okay, all right. Observable truths about our biology.
I predict she's going to say that men are larger and stronger like that horse, and therefore horses are more likely to abuse their owners as people are to abuse their horses.
Yeah, or something. Okay.
Something.
Women are the physically weaker sex. For an average man to hurt an average woman takes almost no effort.
I know, and it's amazing how few of them actually do it.
But not just that. It's actually, she's a bit inaccurate here. Yes, men are stronger, but all humans have extreme weaknesses. I remember a story a while back, where a 150-pound woman killed a guy with one punch.
And
I remember. I think that was caught on video too.
Yeah, and it's, well, I don't know if it was caught on video. It might have been, but it's like women can still kill men.
Yeah, no, and like I noticed a lot of people in the comments of this video, of her video, said, women make up for it with weapons. Well, another thing that women do that men don't tend to do is attack the genitals. Right? Women are more likely to scratch, women are more likely to bite, women are more likely to attack the genitals, and women are more likely to use weapons than men.
Yes.
And they're also more likely to use things that are hot, like irons or pots full of coffee or kettles full of boiling water.
Yep. And they're also use the element of surprise.
Or spraying lighter fluid on someone while they're sleeping and then setting them on fire.
Domestic violence isn't about physical capacity. It's about intent.
Yeah.
Intent to do harm. And the only thing that really opposes intent to do harm is society stigmatizing that intent, which it doesn't do with women, and properly punishing it.
Or the potential victim getting out of the situation.
Yeah. And men spend 8 hours of the day completely, you realize when you're asleep, your ability to control your body is turned off. So you're completely vulnerable in your sleep.
Yeah.
And if someone has the intent to do harm to you, that doesn't matter how physically strong you are when you're awake, you have zero ability to prevent them when you're asleep. And so women use weapons, they use the element of surprise it doesn't matter how strong it, unless you're also going to argue that we should do away with animal abuse laws if the animal is heavier than the average weight of a human being,
or if the animal is capable of inflicting more harm just, with its body than you are, in which case anytime a pit bull mauls a human being, then the human being should go to jail for that, and the pit bull should be put in a battered dog's shelter.
It's looking at physical capacity is the least useful method of inflicting any kind of abuse or harm on a person. The most useful method is using the state to do it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well,
All
no,
right.
and okay. So, and I use this argument all the time, and I'm going to rehash it here, just for Brave the World. Okay, now, if I wanted to beat up my boyfriend, there's a number of ways I can do it. I can wait for him to go to sleep, and I can fucking go at him with a tire iron, in which case I go to jail, right? I can hire somebody to do it for me. I can hire a couple of thugs from 82nd Street, which is only a few blocks away, mind you, and they can come and they can rough him up, and they'll freaking duct tape his hands together and like lock him in the tool shed for 3 days, and then he'll be sorry, right?
Wait,
Or
Karen, can I just interrupt your anecdote briefly? What's the temperature on this rant? Because will it be a rant that I can actually run to the bathroom and?
yes.
Okay.
And honestly, but if I was a smart woman, if I was a really smart woman, what I would do is I would call 911, and I would say, my husband's been beating me. Right? And then the police will come and they'll rough him up and they'll slap duct tape on him and they'll put him in they won't lock him in the tool shed, but they'll put him in a little tiny room with a bunch of violent felons for 3 days minimum, right? And oh my goodness, I've got him out of my house, and boy, won't he be sorry now. Okay. And you know what? If I had done all that myself, I would be guilty of kidnapping. I would be guilty of aggravated assault. I would be guilty of battery. I would be guilty of illegal restraint. I would be guilty of any number of felonies. But because I only picked up the phone and lied to the police, all I'm guilty of is filing a false police report, not even a violent felony. Oh my goodness, it's not even really worthy of anything other than maybe a few hours of community service, and not really worthy of anything that's resembling a felony charge. So, oh my goodness, I'm a completely non-violent person. Even though I made the call that would inflict unjustified, unprovoked violence against my boyfriend because I was annoyed at him.
Indeed. And I think I probably, by osmosis, I know the anecdote. But let's keep going.
Okay.
For an average woman to hurt an average man takes a lot of effort. The males have an advantage in a domestic violence situation.
And yet 70% of domestic violence is initiated by women. Oh my goodness.
There are exceptions. There's women that are large and men that are small.
Okay, wait. And there's also women who know how to use weapons and tools and the element of surprise. But apparently that number is quite insignificant because women are stupid idiots.
Yeah, no, and there's also women who know how to play the system in this. So they know that if they slap their boyfriend once and then he pushes them back or he hits them back in some way, then they can phone the police and have him removed from the house and have all kinds of state violence inflicted on him, even though she was the one who instigated it. Oh my goodness, isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Biological truth. So to claim that there's just as much physical domestic violence from women against men is totally bonkers.
Except it's backed up by evidence.
They quote statistics, and I'm going to read you something that sums up the validity of those statistics. It turns out that these statistics of male abuse, hard and numerical as they are, were gathered by Dubious.
Is this a site that she just put up?
She's accrediting it to two authors. But
well, okay, all right. Sites don't work like that. You have to actually give. Well, maybe she put it in the low bar.
Yeah,
right.
no, we can maybe go back and look at it, but let's listen to what they have.
In police reports as abusers, that is, when women have been sufficiently battered for the police to take an interest, they are frequently questioned later and asked the leading question of whether they were also abused by their partner. Given the opportunity, they are often happy to report that in fact they were, although they seldom report serious or even noticeable injury.
That is such complete fucking bullshit.
Okay.
95% of the stats that we use to prove gender symmetry and domestic violence come from random community samples, not people in the system, not crime statistics, not people being processed by the system, not men in batterer treatment programs, not women in battered women's shelters. No, we don't use those. We use massive, huge, sometimes in the hundreds of thousands of individuals, random community samples.
What is exactly she using? Karen, I think you need to attend to your battery life.
I am. But
Okay,
these
you're ranting and attending to your battery life. That's impressive.
These people are essentially, they're saying that what we are using as our statistics is when the men are arrested for beating their wives, right? And then some researcher comes in and says, "Oh, you abused too." Lots of them say yes, and I'm sure lots of them do say yes, because in lots of cases that's true, right? In over 50% of cases of domestic violence, that's going to be true.
Is this all she has?
This is all that these people she's relying on have, right?
Okay,
she hasn't actually looked at any of our data. She hasn't looked at PASC. She hasn't looked at Fiebert. She hasn't looked at Strauss. She hasn't looked at Steinmetz. She hasn't looked at Gellis. She hasn't looked at any of the people who have actually done random community samples using conflict tactics scale or conflict tactics scale 2, which actually
accounts for the
beyond the acts, but accounts for contextualizing the violence.
Okay, let's continue.
Usually, the quid for which the beating or killing was the quo turns out to have been speech or shoving or slapping.
Okay, this language doesn't sound at all prejudicial.
Yeah, no, it's completely it's. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember, but there was a blogger out there called Linear Thinker, and you can probably still find this blog post. And he actually because there was a blog post by blog post debate that was done between Paul Elam and David Futrell about domestic violence. And David Futrell, one of the things that he said was that conflict tactics scale is a flawed instrument and it can't be trusted and blah 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 because it doesn't take in context into account. Well, you know what? Conflict tactics scale 2 does take context into account. And then he's like, oh, and no researcher takes the conflict tactics scale seriously as a real instrument of measuring domestic violence. And it's like, okay, but there's this other instrument and this other instrument and this other instrument that have all been used to detect gender symmetry and domestic violence. And, you know, this guy, Linear Thinker, and God, I wish I could remember his name, his first name, but he had like 70 citations, right, at the bottom of his blog post, just picking apart everything Futrell said. And it's like this. She's relying on feminists who are telling her MRAs rely on this type of research. And here's why this type of research is bad. And you know what? Anybody who relies on this type of research is full of shit, because they're right. This type of research is bad, but that's not the research we rely on.
Okay, so what we're saying. Ooh, echo again.
Sorry.
What we're saying is that prison, like studies from people in the system, so people who have reported to the police, are not valid. Like not necessarily valid, but they reflect who feels empowered to report their abuse, who feels they won't be arrested by the police if they report their abuse, and that's going to distort the statistics.
Yeah, no, we've always said we've always used the same argument, and I think it's a valid argument. The same argument that feminists use that says that you cannot measure the prevalence of rape in society by only using criminal statistics on the number of rape reports or the number of rapes that are reported and go to prosecution, or the number of rapes that are result in convictions. You can't use that. There's no MRA on the face of the planet who would say that only 6% of rape reports are true because only 6% of reported rapes result in conviction, right? There's no MRA who would ever fucking say that, right? You're not going to be able to prove every case true to a reasonable doubt standard. You're just not going to, right? Feminists will use that logic, only 6% are true, and turn it around and say, well, only 2% are false, because that's the only percentage that police have absolutely 100% determined to be true, to be false, right? And not because they investigated them for falsity, but because, proof of falsity landed in their laps. Like, so that cab driver who was accused, and he had a video camera running the whole time, right? Oh my God, that lands in the 2%.
All right. So right? What I'm getting from this is that she's citing a source that looked at police reports, and found
a source that says that that's what we're looking at.
Well, but not just, and found that when they were arrested, when men were
arrested,
that some of the women reported that they were also violent, but that the violence that they engaged in was insufficient, like or not proportional. You know what? Let's just go on. Let's just go on. We got like another 7 minutes to go, friend.
About spousal abuse that is reported in the media. Yes, women slap and push guys around.
And they cut off their genitals, and they burn them in their beds, and they burn them with clothes irons, and they pour kettles of boiling water at them, and they throw dinner plates at their faces, and they shoot them, and they stab them, and they do all kinds of really atrocious things to their male partners.
And then in some cases, when they do these kinds of unspeakable acts, a bunch of other women will go on to a public or go on to a channel and in the midday and edgelord. That's so funny, because I just realized something. All women in our society are edgelords because our society lets them be.
Yeah, no, they're allowed to not just joke about it. The entire audience of women laughs about it on national daytime TV. Even and like they're laughing about, this guy who's got his dick cut off, and not just cut off, but cut off, and like there's no hope of reattachment because she threw it down in the garbage disposal right in front of him, right? She waited until he woke up from the drugs she gave him, right? Had him tied down, waited until he was awake, cut his dick off, threw it in the garbage disposal, and turned the garbage disposal on. And the reason why she did, not because he abused her, not because he beat her, not because he cheated on her even, he wanted a divorce.
All right, let's keep going.
And that was just hilarious. Not just hilarious, it was fabulous. Quite fabulous. Fuck.
Making them whatever. I've seen the videos, but the guy can easily defend himself by restraining her or leaving unless she's using a weapon.
I don't know.
Have you ever actually fought a woman, lady?
Have you ever actually tried to restrain a 5-year-old having a tantrum?
Seriously, no. But have you ever actually fought a woman?
Have you ever actually tried to restrain someone, even someone half your size, less than half your size? A child, a 5-year-old, having a tantrum, trying to restrain them without hurting them, without getting hurt yourself? Yeah, no. It comes down to they're going to get hurt or you're going to get hurt if they're actually having a tantrum.
You know what? And what's another thing that never gets up in this in these discussions is I have looked at the ergonomic info for men and women, which tracks the weight of men and women throughout their lifetimes. Men only weigh about, I think, 25 pounds more on average than women, and they only weigh that between the ages of about 16 to 40. So for 2.5 decades, they weigh and that is the maximum difference between. So they peak at about 25, 30 pounds heavier than women.
Yeah.
That's it. You are wringing a fuck ton of benefit to yourself and lenience to yourself over a max of a 30-pound difference between men and women. 30 pounds.
Yeah, no, I look at my parents, and my mom could probably kick my dad's ass at this point.
Well, when you get into the 40s, that's when women start to weigh more. Does the logic then reverse there?
I'm sure it does. I'm sure she'd absolutely have no problem with that. I'm just like absolutely flabbergasted at this whole thing, like that you should restrain them. Okay. Even if that's all you do, even if all you do is restrain her, you're still the one who's going to be arrested.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
There's no reason to justify punching a woman back.
Yes, there is. Sometimes there is. There are times when I have wanted to punch a woman, and there are times when I would have felt it was justified. I never did.
Yeah, well, there's actually a legitimate reason. If she's brandishing a weapon, and
there was one man. He was telling his story. It was on the Spearhead ages and ages and ages ago, and when that blog still existed before Wilmer Price married a feminist and then like freaking lost his way. But this guy was saying that his wife was mad at him for some reason. She was jealous because, I don't know, like he was texting a woman from work about work, and she found texts to a woman on his phone or something like that. Right? So she was just flying right off the handle, and she pulls out a kitchen knife right in front of their kids, their two kids, and she tries to stab him in the neck twice. Right? And the first time she nicked him, and the second time he grabbed her wrist with one hand, and he popped her just gave her a little pop in the chops with the other hand, gave her a fat lip, right? Didn't knock any teeth out, didn't knock her loopy, nothing, right? But of course, she instantly does this whole, crush in on herself and start wailing and sobbing and, you're beating me. And she runs.
I cannot fucking stand that.
Infantilizing herself. She runs for the fucking phone, and she calls the police and says that he's beat her, right? So the cops come, and they have the cuffs on him, and they're dragging him out the door, and he's trying to explain. Finally, his kids manage to get it across to these cops that the only reason their dad punched their mom in the mouth is because she was trying to stab him in the neck. Okay? So they let the cuffs off and apologize to him and say, "Sorry, sir, get her some counseling," and leave.
I don't want to know. Like, we've talked a lot about what she's talking about and what she's saying. Well, let's talk a minute about the mentality she must have to abdicate so much. Like, she can't conceive. Just get into the mindset. She can't conceive of using a tool to advance her ends. She can't conceive of using strategy or surprise. As a woman, these things are cut off from her. She's not capable of engaging in them because apparently women aren't actually human, or don't actually have a full complement of human, or even the intelligence of a crow. That we don't have that. We can't actually strategize in the future and wait for our prey to be incapacitated. We can't pick up a weapon.
A way to frame him for,
Yeah, we can't use this. We don't have these abilities. This is what she's saying.
We don't have these abilities even when every single law is biased in our favor.
Let's not even look at the law. I mean, think about what kind of mentality can advance this argument that the only thing it comes down to is brute physical strength. You got to disregard all of those aspects of that made humanity the top predator in the world, because it's not brute physical strength. Let me tell you, we are spam on the hoof. Yeah. It is strategy. It is the element of surprise. It is weaponry. And you are saying that women cannot access those things.
Yeah, no.
What kind of attitude is that towards your own gender? What kind of attitude is that towards yourself?
Do you remember that freaking case back in the 80s with the Tylenol?
Before you get into an anecdote, I just want to, does this girl come to a locked gate and collapse in sobs because she cannot work the mechanism to open it?
Or climb over it?
Or does she not know how to work a knife? Does she not understand the concept of waiting for something to happen to advance her aims? Like, how many avenues of human intelligence has she closed off to herself to seriously advance the argument that she's advancing? Like, we can go on how illogical that argument is, but think about what she's also doing to herself.
what she's doing is she's comparing like intimate partner violence to like battlefield violence. And in battlefield violence, generally greater strength is gonna get you the win. In the ring, right? In mixed martial arts, often greater weight, greater strength is going to give you the edge. It just is, right? When it comes to intimate relationships, they're not like that. You aren't assuming that you're walking into battle every single fucking time you walk in the room. You're walking onto a deadly battlefield. You're not assuming that, right? But what I wanted to get into was that case way back in the 70s or the 80s with the cyanide, there was the recall of all of these bottles of Tylenol off the shelves all across the US because there were, a handful of people who had taken Tylenol and died from cyanide poisoning. And if I remember right, that entire thing was a woman who wanted to kill her husband, right? And wanted to deflect suspicion off of herself. So she poisoned his Tylenol, and then she poisoned random bottles of Tylenol on the shelves of various drugstores in her area, thinking that if it looked like some random lunatic, then it would take suspicion off of her.
Okay, I'm going to address what she's saying here, and also what you said about combat. Actually, this is more like combat. And with combat, it's often surprise and positioning.
Well, ambushing, yeah.
And yeah, that's the win.
The people who are being ambushed, they aren't aware that they're walking onto a battlefield.
Yeah, that's the biggest potential benefit, is not letting your opponent know that they're walking into danger.
Yeah.
She comparing this to a sporting match is ridiculous. The idea is to be sporting. That's why you break people up into weight categories. This isn't domestic violence. Is not sporting.
No.
All right, let's just.
It doesn't follow fucking rules.
We got 7 minutes.
Geneva Convention.
We're at like an hour and a half, and we have 7 minutes left.
Your arm compared to the size of her arm. Nobody should be hitting anybody else. If a man is hit and he doesn't overreachingly hit the woman back, yeah, she should be charged for abuse. There's a discrepancy there. But to claim that just as many men are battered by women as women battered by men sets a pretty low bar for what battering means.
Battery just means that you actually physically assault somebody.
Yeah, you can
assault somebody just by talking to them.
Or spitting on them.
Yeah.
If you want to go with the
assault and battery, though. Definition of the assault and battery. Talking to them. All you have to do is gesture at somebody and them have a reasonable expectation that you could carry through on the violence that you're implying that you're going to commit, right? That's
okay, but let's take her own logic here. She's saying that men should not hit back, basically, should not defend themselves, and should, I guess, rely on society to defend them. You realize that if men cannot defend themselves, if you're not actually able to do anything at all you are is a bigger target, and you're completely helpless. So yes,
society is not going to do anything for you.
Yeah, you're completely helpless. So just following your advice, a woman could beat a man to death because it's almost impossible to restrain a woman, anyone who's within a certain size difference, unless you have specific training. And even then, you usually would restrain people with groups, like you have more than one person helping out to restrain, because it's extremely difficult to restrain someone to prevent them hurting you and you hurting them. So what you're saying is you're essentially saying men should just stand and take it. Well, if men just stand and take it, they can get beaten to death by a woman. That means their strength is completely nullified.
And if they stand and take it and then they call police, they're still probably going to be the ones arrested.
Yeah. So it's like how you can't see that if you want to maintain the social freedom for women to not be hit by men, how you can't see that you're also creating an asymmetrical situation in which men are completely helpless. How can you not see that?
If honestly, blacks are, on average, taller and stronger than whites. Just on average. Right? So I think we should make a law that says when a white person is attacking a black person, the black person is not allowed to defend themselves. And if they do, they're guilty of battery.
And then saying basically white people can't beat the shit out of black people because black people are
no,
bigger.
they wouldn't be able to do any real damage.
Let's just get through this.
Why don't you guys focus on battling things that women are actually doing to men, like severe psychological abuse?
We are.
Yeah,
I think in relationships.
Don't you think part of the psychological abuse might be smack? Yeah, you know you can't hit me back, fucker. Smack! Yeah, you know if you ever fucking touch me, I just have to make one call and you're fucking gone, right? And you'll never see your kids again. Smack! Yeah, you know you can't even fucking lift a finger to me, you fucker. Yeah, you know that. You know your place, bitch. You think that might have something to do with psychological abuse?
all right, let's.
Pretty good at that, aren't
Yeah, they are. They are.
Oh God,
abusive as men psychologically.
I don't understand the zero sum here. We can do both, friend. We can do both. We have it in our capability. We can do it. All right.
I've heard the men's rights movement claiming that men are just as frequently raped as women.
It's not the men's rights movement claiming it. It's actual researchers in the field.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and she says, yeah, by other men. No. If you include, yeah, by other men, then men are the majority victims. Not just as much, the majority victims. If you just include women committing rape on men, women committing forced or coercive sex on men, sex that by Mary Koss's own definition, by every feminist definition under the sun, right? And it doesn't matter what definition you're using, right? If you're using the definition verbal coercion, threats, using a weapon, force, jumping out of the freaking bushes, like sort of taking advantage of somebody who's passed out, roofing them, whatever. It doesn't matter what definition you're using and how broad it is. If you are using the same definition for men who rape women and women who rape men, you get rough parity. You get gender symmetry. So even if you restrict it to just the people who use like threats of force and physical force, you get gender symmetry. If you expand it to include people who are taking advantage of passed out people at parties, you get gender symmetry as well. If you expand it to verbal coercion, if you don't do this, I'm going to end the relationship. Oh my goodness, you get gender symmetry. No matter what definition you use for sexual aggression and sexual coercion against the opposite sex, you get gender symmetry.
The only place where okay, mute and unmute, Karen. The only place where you don't see the symmetry is when you change the length of time that you look at. What happens is that for whatever reason, either male respondents are just dropping out of the population of people capable of taking surveys, which is entirely possible since male victims of rape do get no services. So they're probably disproportionately represented under the homeless, suicides, institutionalized individuals. So, but what happens is if you look at the last year, you get parity. You look at the last 5 years, the ratio of male victims to female victims usually drops to about 30%. You look at lifetime, it drops again to 20%. So we don't know why this is, but it's pretty consistent. We don't know the precise reason why it is, but it's pretty consistent. You ask men and women, any definition of rape, if you ask men and women, were you subject to this form of sexual violence in the last year? Equal numbers say yes. Like Karen was saying.
Well, and it's not just equal numbers say yes. It's also equal in the sense of or roughly equal in the sense of perpetration. Like 40% over the lifetime. And this is the this is the thing that I really wish somebody would just freaking go after the CDC for, because I know they have the previous year numbers for perpetration. I know that they do for gender of perpetrator.
They do.
They did not publish them, and they would not give them to Hannah when she phoned and asked for them, right? They wanted to know what purpose she was going to use them for before they handed them over to her. Oh my goodness, I wonder why. I wonder what they could possibly want to keep under wraps. Maybe the percentage of perpetrators of made to penetrate on men is even greater than 80% female when it comes to previous year statistics. Maybe it is, right? All I know is Denise A. Hines found that when it came to heterosexual long-term relationships, she found that there was a higher degree of physical force female on male, and a slightly higher degree of verbal coercion male on female. So men in relationships are more likely to be like, oh, honey, I really want it, and you love me, baby, don't you? And I don't know how I feel about this relationship if you're not going to put out, right? That's what men are more likely to do to women, and women are more likely to pin their man down and say, you're going to fuck me or you're going to be sorry.
I shouldn't have laughed at that. It's true.
No, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And
it's dark laughter, believe me.
It is. And, and it's so unexpected.
And why wouldn't that be the case? Because, again, he fights back and she's totally screwed. All you've got.
And he'll do it. He'll do it because if he, every single fucking man that I've talked to who has been raped by a woman, okay, and this really goes to the domestic violence stats and all of those things that we think are men are such absolute fucking cunts about. Oh, they smack around their women and shit like that, right? Okay, every single fucking guy that I have talked to who has been raped by a woman has not fought back, not because he froze out of fear, right, of what would happen to him if he said no or if he resisted, but out of fear of hurting the woman.
That's a real mind fuck.
Psychological
abuse. Okay, let's get through another minute.
There's a huge undeniable issue in prisons, and nobody cares because they're prisoners and we have a terrible system.
Nobody cares because they're men. We care more about the plight of the 5% of prisoners who are women than we do about the 95% of prisoners who are men. You can even see that in California's pilot project. They're going to give early release to all the non-violent female offenders because, okay, here's the reason they're doing it: to free up space in the overcrowded prison system and to save money, right? But they're only going to do this with women prisoners, the grand total of whom represent 5% of the prison population, right? They're only going to do this with non-violent women prisoners, even though non-violent male prisoners suffer much more overcrowding, cost the system way more money, way more space could be opened up, way more money could be saved by letting them go on early release. And they're like, oh, we might at some point, if it's a success with the women, we might look at expanding it to the male prisoners.
All right.
Fuck. Let's get through it. I'm sorry.
That's a whole thing in and of itself. Oh, and guess what? It's, again, not about sexism against men, because there are male security guards in female prisons who routinely rape the female prisoners.
And there are female security guards in male juvenile facilities
and male prisons
rape the male juvenile prisoners, and there are female guards in the female facilities who routinely rape the female prisoners.
And there are female guards in the adult male facilities who rape the male prisoners. She's just identified the least common form of sexual abuse in prisons.
Male guard on female inmate. Yeah, that's
much worse is female inmate on female inmate, and female guard on male inmate. Like this is. Could you please just look at the stats?
Yeah, no, and it's really frustrating because, like, the whole reason why you can, like, how many male prison guards are there in female inmate facilities?
I'm sure that there are much fewer, and also they're much more carefully monitored.
Yeah, and in male facilities, female guards are, sometimes more than 50% of the guards.
Yep. All right, let's keep going.
I'm pretty sure the abuse in prisons is pretty equal when it comes to sexes.
It is. Isn't that interesting? Men commit more violent sex crimes than women.
Just keep going, because I think she's responding to this.
We should acknowledge that there are different hotspots in our limbic systems that are active.
Okay, just a second. Why don't we read that out? Why don't we read out that previous thing? Could you go back a bit?
Oh, I was there.
Yeah. Just work, woman. All right. Let's consider the following statement. Okay, would you stop?
I'm trying to get there.
You keep scrolling past it like 300. Okay. All right, stop. Okay, press play.
Yeah, no, I'm stopping and there we go.
Yes. Okay, press play. All right, don't press play. Let's consider the following statement. Men commit more violent sex crimes than women. Some would assert this statement is based on skewed statistics, underreporting, or a feminist agenda. If you're that someone, please listen closely. Okay. I think she's talking to us now, Karen.
I think she is.
Stop for a second. So all of the research we've done that's found out that the majority of sexual abuse in prisons is female guard on male inmate, and that includes forced sex. And definitely the majority of sexual abuse in juvenile detention facilities is female guard on boy. And all of the research we've gone into in looking at, for example, Mary Kelly literally saying, Mary Koss literally saying that a woman forcing a man isn't rape, and that getting written into the statistics that are presented to the government, all of this we just got to ignore. And she's going to explain why. She's going to explain why.
Because of the limbic system.
During sexual arousal.
Yes, I know. Different parts of the brain are activated during sexual arousal. Do you know what? You know what's interesting? Alison?
What?
Is a man has to be physically aroused to rape someone. He has to be physically aroused to stick his erect penis in another person's body. Okay? A woman doesn't have to be aroused. A woman, and this is the whole thing about rape is about power, not sex. Well, for men, there's got to be sex in there somewhere. For women, a woman can rape a man without ever being sexually aroused.
Yeah, actually, I never thought about that, but you're right. That's sort of creepy too. Okay, let's keep going.
Depending on your gender. No way. For females, it's mostly the ventral medial hypothalamus, which is also a hotspot for estrogen and progesterone. For men, it's the medial preoptic area, which is also a hotspot for testosterone and androgen. Both of these areas are in the hypothalamus. The difference is that in men, the amygdala also plays a small role in their sexuality.
Yes, it does. Interestingly enough, the amygdala is not just about aggression. It's also about long-term learning. And it's also about fear.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. So does she know that actually it's the aggression that's activated in the amygdala versus long-term learning and fear?
It's the aggression that's activated rather than the fear.
So this is just conjecture. And the other question I have is, considering that a great proportion of men are subjected to a very, very violent form of sexual assault via genital mutilation when they're children, or when they're infants, would that tend to also increase the likelihood of a fear response in conjunction with a sexual response?
And exactly, and on top of that, if you look at the fact that the amygdala is actually a lot of our it's absolutely necessary for learning. It's how you learn how to cope with stressful situations. it all goes through your amygdala. So the amygdaloid response, right? The first time that you hear the snapping twig behind you as you're walking through the woods, and then a leopard jumps on you, and and you manage to fight it off and survive, right? The second time you hear a snapping twig behind you, you're already reacting as if it's a leopard coming at you from behind. So you're already spinning on your heel, you're opening your mouth to scream, both to scare the thing away and summon help. You're already being infused with chemicals that will help you either fight it off or run away, right? You're already doing all of those things without even thinking about it, because it's already been imprinted on your amygdala. That's how the amygdala functions, right?
Okay.
So something like having part of your penis cut off without anesthetic as an infant might leave some imprint on your amygdala.
Okay, let's continue. So they would have to control for that. And did they?
I don't think they did. And they still don't know. I mean, they suspect maybe, right, that the reason why, that this little bit of amygdaloid function in male sexual motivation is the reason why they figure men are more likely to confuse aggression with sex. But from all of the numbers, we know that men aren't more likely to confuse aggression with sex, so it has to do something else. And I did cover that in another video of mine about men, women, and sex and dominance hierarchies or something like that, ages and ages ago, that went into what I think might have to do with, and I think that small bit of amygdaloid function in male sexual motivation is about male competition.
I think you guys are in the wrong stream. Either that, I'm not sure how the hell you got this stream.
I don't know, but
yeah, can you explain how you got to this stream? Because this is a live stream going through our channel right now, and I think that you crashed it for some reason.
Can you give me a link?
No, I did not give you a link.
No, I said give me a link to the live stream of the channel and the channel.
Yeah. Anyhow, just you guys who are here, just you can hang out. Just mute your mics, and we'll be done.
We'll listen.
And then.
Okay. All right. Let's you can hang out for a bit. If you talk or a bit disruptive, I might have to be an asshole.
We'll just boot you out.
Yeah. All right. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So just mute your mics. You can hang out at least until the end, but whatever.
Put the link in the chat real quick.
I'm not sure what link you're wanting.
For the live stream.
You're in the live stream.
You're in the live stream.
Oh.
You're going out live on our channel.
Yeah, you're actually crashing our live stream here.
Okay.
So if you were intended to watch it, I would suggest dropping out of this Google Hangout. Oh my God! I think we're being like. Did you actually give this to someone?
I didn't. Anybody?
All right. Oh, looks like we have some sort of invasion.
I have nothing to do with it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's continue. That was greatly amusing. That was greatly amusing. Now let's continue with this discussion.
Oh, okay. All
right. So we were talking about the amygdala, and
yes,
Karen was pointing out that the amygdala is when you see a amygdala response, we don't know if it's anger, long-term learning, or fear. So when she points out that men have an amygdala response in response to sexual stimuli, we don't know if it's because they are aggressive, or are trying to learn something, or are afraid.
And we don't even know if it's to do with it, because it seems to be linked with sexual motivation and not sexual arousal. We don't know whether it's entirely sort of a remnant of male, brutal knuckles, bare knuckles.
Fighting or whatever.
Fighting.
We can conjecture on it, but let's find out what she has to say. Let's find out if she actually knows this about the amygdala.
Performance of sexuality, and
It doesn't guide the performance of sexuality.
You gotta do a full screen there, friend.
Okay, just let me back it up a bit.
Yeah, let's back it up. Let's back up.
Okay.
This dump truck.
Creates motivation. The scary thing is the amygdala is also the center for aggression in males.
Okay, but it creates.
No. Go back. Look at the fucking shit-eating grin. Look at the shit-eating grin.
Yeah, no, it was. She looked a little bit smug, but it's the center for aggression in males. So why is it that males are more aggressive with other males than they are with females in every conceivable way? Even men who brutally beat their wives are more aggressive outside their relationships, and they're more violent outside their relationships with other men than they are within them with their wives. Why is it that when men rape other men, they are much more likely to leave those men bleeding, incontinent, fecally incontinent, absolutely like completely unable to freaking hold in their feces, infected, freaking bodies completely destroyed? Why is that?
Okay, I just want you to go back a little bit further. Just go back a few seconds. People are calling me your abusive boss. Okay,
Yeah,
just a few more seconds. A few more. Yeah, just go forward. Go forward and then pause. Let's pause.
Aggression in males.
Pause. Look at that shit-eating fucking grin.
I know.
It's like she won a point on ping pong. I'm winning here. I get an extra point.
No, well, I don't think it's that she's winning a point. I don't think that's what it is. I think she likes the idea of males being more aggressive than females. I think she finds that attractive. I think she finds that aspect of.
No, that's not. That doesn't look like it. I apologize, but that doesn't look like a me gusta grin. It looks more like I scored a point. Like I've just sunk someone's battleship. What the fuck kind of attitude is that? Like seriously.
Yeah, well, it's one of those attitudes. Sam, I'm on a live stream. You need to. Oh, Rachel. Shh.
Okay. Control your spawn, woman.
Yeah, she just walked in. She just got home from work.
All right.
Okay. We're moving on.
Okay.
This just might explain why there is a much higher propensity for males to confuse sex with violence.
Okay, stop.
My goodness.
There's the payload.
Words of Robert Sapolsky.
She just put her ass cheeks in her face and deposited a load.
Yeah, but
all right.
The problem is that men aren't. And, the only part of male sexuality that seems to be more aggressive than female sexuality is in the methods they use to compete with other males.
Okay, and here's the thing. Statistically, what you are just created a circular reasoning. You said, essentially, this proves that men are more sexually violent, therefore they're more sexually violent. You haven't actually proved, because the statistics do not bear you out.
Yeah.
They don't bear you out. At the very least, you can only say, if you are going to be you want to be completely neutral on this issue, the best you can do is we don't know. The best you can do. That's the best you can hope for, because you cannot categorically say that women are more sexually violent than men at this point in time. You cannot.
The best you can do is say that maybe the little bit of amygdaloid function contributes to male sexual violence, male sexual aggression, in as far as evolutionary motivation, right? And that there is some other thing that motivates women to commit sexual violence on an evolutionary.
Or you can say that maybe that we aren't actually looking at the brains of rapists, or we don't know if we are, so this has no bearing at all.
Yeah, no, essentially, like if 90 to 95% of males can be wired this way and never rape, then I would hesitate to attribute this particular wiring.
Oh, this is amusing. Okay, so Eric Brock from the chat says, ladies, this woman clearly has a speck of rationality in her head. Let's not scare her away into the waiting arms of Anita by tearing her a new vagina over the things she has wrong. I don't think we are actually tearing her a new vagina over the things she has wrong, personally. We have been much worse, but I don't see why we should pull our punches because it's a woman.
This is the same argument that Russ Lindquist gave to me when I was doing my responses to Danielle Parody. And he said, oh, if you're, you were so mean and you were so condescending, and I was like, or you sounded so condescending, he said. And I said, I'm sure I sounded condescending because I was. And why would I care if this radical feminist goes off and gets herself radicalized? Why would I care? Oh my goodness, I pushed her into it by arguing against her and not being nice about it. Like,
I don't even think we're being that mean.
If this woman, yeah, but we're not being particularly nice. If this woman, Brave the World, is a rational human being, then she will take into consideration what we have said about the things that she has said here. And it's essentially...
God damn it, your bitch is being...
No, it's my other kid. Shh.
Oh, I thought it was the dog.
No, and my dog.
All right, but the thing is that I'm thinking from that...
But then we can't hear the videos, so...
Okay, I'm thinking from that incredible grin on her face, that smug grin on her face, like she won a point because she pointed out that men's amygdalas fire during sex or when they're sexually aroused. I think that suggests that there is some emotional component to what she's advancing. And I would seriously say, you got to stow that shit. As you would say to me, Karen, you got to stow that shit because that's fucked up.
Stow that shit, Marine. We got no fucking time for that.
Yeah, it's like yeah, that's you gotta figure out what's going on there for I Brave the World.
Guy.
You gotta figure out why you're getting such a thrill at the thought that men are, I assume, less moral, innately moral than you is what you're going for?
Predisposed to sexual violence.
Yeah, but just you gotta look deep into your soul there. Believe me, I've looked deep into my soul.
I try not to look at mine because it's black and it's probably drunk.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, men get longer sentences than women on average. I don't think this is a result of intended discrimination.
Wait. God, is she okay? My thing is cutting it out. So she said men get longer sentences than average, and she doesn't think that's because of discrimination.
Doesn't think it's because of intended discrimination or intentional. Of course not. It's because of subconscious discrimination.
Yeah, but it's like it doesn't. Does it matter why it is? It just is.
Agreed. Does it matter whether it's codified into the law or which it will be in the it is now in the UK. It's
yeah, they got some sort of guideline that they have to discriminate.
Freaking Madam Justice Hale freaking ordered all of the judges in the UK to give women even more lenient sentences than they already were because in her words, a misguided conception of equality has led to some very unequal treatment of women and girls in our society.
Well, yeah, it is unequal, but it's unequal in their favor.
I know, but let's make it more unequal in our favor and that will make it more equal.
Oh, fuck this logic. And for anybody who's like, well, I don't want to have to champion the idea of changing the prison, like making the judges give women either longer prison sentences or more leniency. For anybody who's saying that, well, fine. You don't have to champion a damn fucking thing. You don't have to get off your couch and wipe the Dorito bits off your frickin' shirt for anything. Nobody's telling you to. But at the very least, it does give lie to the idea that society somehow benefits men.
And privileges them, yeah.
Okay.
I think judges and jurors are used to seeing more men commit violent crimes, which they do.
Except for that we don't know that.
Yeah, actually we don't, because I saw a very compelling preliminary investigation into the numbers that suggests that this may be an artifact of the fact that we give some women so much fucking lenience. And we don't see what they do as violent. We see a male criminal and the female criminal engaging in equal acts of violence. And, you ask the eyewitnesses, they think the female criminal was less violent, even though it was equal number. It's systematic, and we don't know for sure if men really are more violent, or if society just doesn't give them as much lenience to be violent as it does women.
Yeah, no, and if you look at it, they see, and juries see, and judges are more likely to see, they see more men on, on trial. Okay, well, but women and men committing the same crime, a woman is half as likely to be even stopped, and then half as likely to be arrested when she's stopped, and then half as likely to be charged when she's arrested, and then she's probably going to be charged with a lesser offense, right? So even if that judge has seen her before, he's seen her there before, defending herself against a much lesser charge than the man that he's already seen 3 times, because all 3 times he committed that identical crime, he got stopped, arrested, and charged with a more severe offense.
All right, let's keep going.
I actually saw someone, Permutation of Ninjas, was it? He actually went and he said...
No, yeah, that's who I was talking to. I think it was Permutations of Ninja.
Yeah. He said, let's assume there's a 50-50 male-female prison population, and let's see where these discounts, the ones that we can quantify, get us, right? When we assume there's 50-50 male and female criminals, and after he included all of these quantifiable discounts that women get in the system, he reached something that was really close to what we have now in our prison system, really, really close to the ratio of 95 to 5, male to female.
So
right?
we don't know.
We don't know
if the ratio is due to men being more violent or women simply getting more passes for being violent.
There you go. We have no fucking idea.
So when a woman does it, it's just something they're not used to. It's just something that's not as normalized in society, from which follows that they give her a lighter sentence.
It's not a stereotype that women have to deal with.
And sometimes being a woman actually hurts you because of that expectation for women being less violent.
Oh, is this going to be another bullshit claim about wicked women syndrome or whatever? The wicked
I was actually phasing out there for a bit.
Like, she says sometimes being a woman penalizes you, or makes it worse for you in the criminal system. And
no, it doesn't.
Stopped it. No, it never does. But this didn't stop. E. Belfort Bax in 1908 was writing about this. Feminists say women are more harshly treated than men by the criminal justice system. How can they say this when every piece of evidence we have says that it's the opposite, right?
Because that's what they do.
Yeah,
that's how they feel. That's how you feel when you have this is the way you think when you have a big fucking shit-eating grin on your face when you say, "Oh yes, men's amygdalas. They activate during sex." Like that's what you're fucking. That's what you advance. That's your bias. Like, Jesus Christ.
Smart's case. Pamela Smart didn't even kill anybody. She was alleged to have influenced 3 young males to kill her husband. Yet she got a longer sentence than Charles Manson. And
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but that's an anecdote. It doesn't really describe statistics, and statistics.
It doesn't mean that she got that longer sentence because she was a woman.
No, statistics definitely show that women get a sentencing discount. So we'd have to look a little closer at the case.
Well, you can't even say that Pamela Smart got a lower sentence than Charles Manson. Pamela Smart was in year what? Charles Manson was in year what? What were the guidelines? What were the sentences in the jurisdictions that they were in? What were the circumstances? All of those things, right? And last I checked, Charles Manson is, he never got out of prison.
Okay, let's try to.
Longer than 3 of the boys that actually did the killing.
Yeah, she got a sentence longer than 3 of the boys that actually did the killing. Just like a fucking mafia boss gets a longer sentence than his fucking hitman.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Isn't that interesting?
Okay.
Here's the one I have the biggest problem with.
Okay, this should be interesting.
In 2006, the American National Center for Men backed a lawsuit known as Dubious versus Wells. The case concerned whether men should have the opportunity to decline all paternity rights and responsibilities in the event of an unplanned pregnancy.
Oh, do you know brave the world that one of my favorite feminists ever, who passed away just in the last couple of years, one of my very, very favorite feminists ever, and I have a few, Kathy Young, Wendy McElroy, Christina Hoff Sommers, even, Warren Farrell would maybe sort of dance around the name of feminist, the label, right? I have some feminists that I really like, and one of the ones that I really, really liked was Karen DeCrow. And Karen DeCrow argued as a lawyer representing a man in front of a judge, and she won the case. She argued that women now have the unilateral control. They have unilateral control over their reproductive capabilities. They have the unilateral choice of whether or not they want to become mothers. And as long as women are engaged in unilateral decisions about their futures, they should not expect men to finance them. And she won the case, and it was overturned on appeal. And so if only that case wasn't overturned, this wouldn't even be an argument right now. That was a feminist. That was the woman feminism promised us and almost never delivered. Like, I don't understand. Like, men shouldn't have to, men should be able to walk away from a pregnancy. Oh my God, because all of those men who were responsible for those babies being born. No, those men aren't responsible for those babies being born any more than they would be responsible if the woman went to the sperm bank.
Okay.
Okay, guys, that's fucking retarded. Let me explain a hate fact to you. When you engage in intercourse, there is a possibility you will have a baby.
No. That's not how it is for women. When you engage in intercourse, there is a possibility that there will be a zygote, that there will be a blastocyst, that there will be a fetus. There is no possibility that there will be some accidental baby that just happens.
This is true. Well, unless she's chained up in the basement.
Yeah, no, okay. So there's that one woman in Austria, whose dad chained her up in the fucking basement. Okay, we're going to base all of our freaking...
On the one woman in Austria.
On the one woman in Austria whose dad was a fucking sadistic lunatic and locked her up in the basement and kept impregnating her. Like...
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. You're right. There is no baby until the birth.
There is absolutely such a thing as an accidental pregnancy. I can guarantee you it doesn't happen as often as it's claimed to have happened, right? But there is such a thing as an accidental pregnancy, right? There is no such thing as an accidental birth, and there's no such thing as accidental motherhood, because
I just have to say something. If I ever said to my husband, I want you to appear in a ridiculous wig in my videos, you know what he would say to me? I would give you a guess, Karen.
He'd say, I'll appear in the mask that has the nose that could make me pleasure two women at once.
Well, I think he would tell me to go fuck myself. Or no, what he'd say is, you no. He would not do this. I'm amazed that I assume this is a boyfriend of hers?
Maybe not. Maybe it's just some random dude on the internet. I don't know.
Oh, okay, it could be a random dude on the internet. But if it is, congratulations, you have a hell of a lot more control over your man than I have over mine.
But what drives me crazy about this argument is that women have way more wherewithal to prevent pregnancy. They have every single tool that men have to prevent a pregnancy. In other words, men have condoms. Oh, women have condoms too. And a woman is just as able to insist that her man use one as a man is to insist that he use one. And she's just as able to observe that it's being used properly as he is. Oh my goodness, right? Now, would this woman think that, okay, that one option that's equally accessible to men and women, and it's equally fair and above board and observable and nobody can lie about it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, no, that's all women have. That's all women can have. Women can't have any other form of birth control. No IUDs, no, RUD 40 or whatever the fuck it is. No morning after pill, no abortion, right? No, none of that. No safe haven laws, nothing. No being able to adopt the child out, nothing. All you have is condoms. Would women be happy?
The laws of the world should be left up to bitter old women like us.
Would women say, I am content to allow the trajectory of my life and my future to be entirely dependent on the integrity of this condom? Would they be okay with that?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm guessing not.
And that's the thing. Like I can imagine that, and I'd be like, you know what? I wouldn't like that kind of thing for myself, and I don't want that for men either. Because
no, I don't either. And the thing is like she's saying, oh well, there's always a chance. Every time you have sex, there's always a chance. Yes, there's always a chance that there will end up a pregnancy, a conception, right? But then once that happens, right, every single fucking decision is in the unilateral hands of the woman. And she doesn't just get to decide for herself, she gets to decide for the baby. And she gets to decide for the man. She gets to decide what 3 people's lives are going to look like. Not just hers, 3 different people. So if she doesn't think that baby has more right to a life than she has to not be inconvenienced, then gone. Flush down the fucking toilet. Morning after pill.
All right, Karen.
Done. Right?
We got some more stations to get to.
Oh my! It's like she has 100% of those decisions in her hand, right? And then she can come back after the fact, after she's made all of these decisions. I'm not going to take that morning after pill. I'm not going to have an abortion. I'm not going to give the baby over to welfare. I'm not going to give the baby to a set of adoptive parents. I'm going to keep that baby. Oh, and now that man who impregnated me when I told him I was on the pill, but I really wasn't, right? He's now equally responsible for this child's existence.
Okay. We got 3 minutes left.
Even though most of the time you engage in intercourse, it's proximal, meaning it feels good. That doesn't change the underlying motivation, which is distal, which means to pass on your genes. No matter how you spin it or dress it up or rationalize it, intercourse at its foundation is for the purpose of creating babies.
So therefore she's totally against abortion, I'm sure.
Maybe she is. Maybe she is logically consistent. Not just abortion, but also intrauterine devices and the pill, because it removes zygotes and basically almost every form of birth control. By the way, why don't you have 3 children? But I brave the world
myself.
I think you're old enough to have at least half a dozen.
Yeah, I think she probably is old enough to at least have 2. Right? Because, okay, half a dozen, if they were all just like, if it was just like, oh, okay, you get pregnant and then you give birth and then there's no period of infertility. But, to have 3 kids, that's going to be 6 years usually for most women before, 2 years after getting pregnant.
This is the difference, Brave the World. When you have sex, you have absolute control over whether a baby happens. A man doesn't.
Oh, and after the baby happens, you have absolute control over whether you're going to take responsibility for it, and the man doesn't.
Okay, let's try to get through this. We're almost done.
This is just for fun. Whether she told you that she was on birth control and she wasn't. Whether your condoms...
Okay, stop. If she tells you she's on birth control and she wasn't, that is a form of domestic violence.
It's actually a form of rape, or it should be, according to Canadian law.
Okay, let's continue.
That you forgot to pull out doesn't matter. You participated in an act that has...
and in some cases, even if men haven't consensually participated in a sexual act, they are still liable.
I know.
Child support.
14 years old, raped by a 35-year-old woman, and then they get to pay her child support. Isn't that wonderful? Or they're raped by a woman while they're sleeping, and then they get to pay child support. Isn't that wonderful? Or they never even met the woman, but she put their name, she gave their name to welfare when she applied for benefits, and then the first he knew about it, he got a garnishee order in the mail, and then he went to court and said, I want a DNA test, and they said, oh, you need her permission to do that.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. I love how she's got this fake vulnerability going on. Aw, you're such a little
It's a very pale pink lipstick.
No. It's she's her demeanor has changed significantly.
And well, in the look at the sort of the she's wearing a tank top like me, except it's like sort of
girly.
Yeah, and she's got her hair back, but it's still kind of
No. I'm not talking about her appearance. I'm talking about her demeanor has significantly changed.
Chin down, and she's promoting her forehead, and her eyes are quite large and looking up.
This would be an indication that this part of the video has got the most bullshit quotient in it.
Probably, yeah.
I know that some women are pretty shitty and will lie about being on the pill and trick you into being the father of their child. Guess what, guys? You're still 50% responsible for them.
No,
they're not. Just like if somebody sends you a phishing email and says, I'm your bank and we have an issue. Can you log in and talk to a representative, right? And you click on that link and you type in your password and it takes you somewhere weird, and then they have your password now, and then they empty your bank account. They're more than 50% responsible for that. Not you, right? You were dumb. You were dumb to trust that. You're fucking retard to trust it, just like you're a retard in my mind in this day and age, if you know what's going on, to believe a woman when she says she's on the pill, right? And you should always insist on a condom. You should always insist on your own birth control, right? But if she lies and tricks you into pregnancy, she's committing fraud.
And she's also committing a crime according to the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, because that is considered domestic violence.
It's considered reproductive coercion, and that is a form of domestic intimate partner violence.
Okay, so yeah, generally criminals are considered more culpable than their victims. And no matter how big-eyed and tipping your chin and looking up through your eyelashes you do to try to deliver this bullshit, it's still bullshit.
It's still victim blaming.
Yeah, well, and it's so funny because what's really interesting is she's playing up the neoteny just as she victim blames men.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
A child, whether it was conceived out of love, by accident, or by a lie. Is that unfair? I don't think so. Pretty sure God was smart enough to pull out before fire was invented. So
fucking unfair.
Yeah, no, what she's saying is that the only way for a man to protect himself is to never trust a woman, not any woman, not even his wife of 15 years.
I just like this is totally an unfair situation. Can't you put yourself in men's shoes and realize that this is unfair? That if women have the right to separate their sexuality from being a parent, that men should have that right too.
Okay, what if? Okay, here's a what if. Okay, so she's with a guy, and let's say she has some problems with squamous cells on her cervix or something like that, and she's worried about cancer, and she's like, okay, before I, go through all the diagnostic procedures and the possible treatments, I want to harvest some of my eggs, right? So that my boyfriend and I, my intimate partner, my significant other and I will be able to have children, right? Okay, so she harvests some eggs and she freezes them, and she goes through her thing, and she's fine and all of that, and then she ends up 5 years later divorcing her husband, this guy, right? but he's still a signatory on those eggs, and she kind of forgot about it. She just forgot about it. You know, she wasn't really thinking. She didn't think to pull out of that whole deal, right? So then he goes to the fucking fertility clinic and he signs out her eggs and he has them fertilized with his semen, and then he implants them in a surrogate woman, right? Surrogate mother. And he produces, I don't know, triplets. And then he comes after her for child support. Well, didn't she know to pull out? I mean, I'm sure that any reasonable, intelligent person would know to go to that fertility clinic and say, and say to them, don't let this guy take my eggs because we're not together anymore. Would she feel like maybe he'd fucked her over and that maybe he'd wronged her and committed a crime, that maybe, just maybe, he shouldn't profit from that?
What can I say, Karen? I guess we're dealing with someone like I'm still going back to that whole face she pulled when she said the male amygdala is complicit with sexual arousal. Like that, it didn't look like it was like she was just, flashing back to a particularly juicy bodice ripper she had read recently. It looked more like she felt like she was scoring a moral point against men, which may have been what set this up. Because if you dehumanize men by embracing that kind of, and this is how we dehumanize all kinds of groups of men throughout history, is we associate their sexuality with violence, even though, it could be that the amygdala is once again being activated due to long-term learning or fear. She went right for the association of male sexuality and violence, which is a way that we've demonized groups of men throughout all of history and made them lesser and less than human. And then, so we have that smug grin, like she scored a point against men. Like she's basically, that seems to be her moment of intellectual climax in this whole thing. And now she's playing out what she wants to see. Why she actually reduced men down to being inhuman by associating their sexuality with violence in order to demonize them. Now she's playing out what she wants to justify. It's the whole threat narrative. You reduce a group of men down to beasts by associating their sexuality with violence, and then you justify a form of violence against them, a form of dismissing your compassion or empathy for them. And so that was her weapon. That was the shiv between the ribs, and this was the payload, which is this belief that male sexuality is only in service to women, that men shouldn't be able to differentiate, shouldn't be able to separate their sexuality from financial obligation to women.
Well, it's not even that. Women should and deserve the right to decouple their sexuality from reproduction, but men don't deserve that same right.
And what's really creepy is she delivered this is the payload, this is the poison. She
because
honestly, with such a cutesy way.
Yeah, no, and even in my scenario with the harvested eggs, right? Even if the guy didn't come after her for child support, if he, just happened to mention offhand to her, oh, by the way, I'm raising 3 of your children right now. They're mine, though. They don't belong to you, and you have no rights to them, right? But they're here, and you know about it, and, you're just going to have to live with that. Would she think that was okay? I completely circumvented your consent to create new human life, and now I'm just gonna, do what I want with these kids, and you're not invited to participate, but I thought you might enjoy knowing about that, knowing that you have 3 kids out there, and not through your choice, right? Would she be okay with that? Would she be just fine with that? This is what men deal with all the time. They always deal with that knowledge that, if every woman I have sex with, every woman I hook up with, if she got pregnant, would she tell me? Would she even fucking tell me?
All right. We are at a half hour past and we still have like almost 2 minutes left. So let's try to blaze through the last.
Okay.
Just do that if you don't want to get a girl pregnant. Those getting red flags right now, the pull-out method is actually more effective than condom.
Oh, what a bullshit.
No, it's not. It's actually more effective than people think it is, but it's not more effective than condoms.
Okay.
Just as effective as hormonal birth control.
No, it's not.
But, well, not when used correctly.
How to do it properly. Well, you pull out before you ejaculate. The only way to mess this up,
I don't want this.
if you don't pull out before you ejaculate, or if you ejaculate prior to sex without peeing in between. When you pee, the urine clears out the urethra and destroys any sperm that may be trapped in the tract.
No.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. But then you see, you have this thing that happens during a state of arousal for a man called pre-seminal fluid, which actually has some sperm in it. And it will have some sperm in it even if they peed. Oh my goodness. It's like, and then you have eggs like me who are total floozies and who are like, oh, you don't even have to buy me dinner, just come on in. Then, you know, you only have to borrow a man's toothbrush to get fucking pregnant.
Okay.
If you don't pee and there's sperm trapped,
This is just annoying now. This is like, you know what? I don't need to listen to this. Does she have anything left?
may impregnate the woman.
She's
even
giving
if you
us
pull out.
the lecture
So,
about
again, to
sex
reiterate
eds, but
to all of you who are confused, if you don't want to get a woman pregnant, have a pee, then have sex with her and pull out before you ejaculate. Another suggestion, if you really don't know her or she has a history of lying, or if you just want to be extra safe, also wear a condom. Also, on the subject of women being evil and tricking men into having babies with them,
Wait, we pause.
Who knock up a girl and she wants to get rid of it, and he says, no baby, I love you, I want to be the daddy, let's move in together, I'll support you, blah blah blah. 6 months later, or right after the baby is born, or a year into it, dude runs away, never to
That's what child enforcement aid, child support is for.
yeah, and on top of that, I really have to wonder how common that is.
Yeah. Well, it's like, so what about it? I mean,
even if he's like, oh no, baby, don't have an abortion, right? It's still her decision.
Yeah, it's still your
You can't
decision.
force her to not have one.
And the other thing is that we actually have statistics on how many women perform reproductive coercion, which is a form of abuse on men, or at least how many men report it. So this is not a fiction. This is not invisible. This is something tracked by the Center of Disease Control. So I'm not quite sure why she's poo-pooing it. And the other thing is, why is that the comparison? Wouldn't the comparison be a man who somehow forces a woman into pregnancy, which is also domestic abuse? And I don't think either of us has suggested is anything but that.
Oh no, there was a case in Nova Scotia, in just like a couple of years ago. The man was found guilty of aggravated sexual assault. He wanted to save his relationship with his girlfriend. He thought that a baby would do that, so he poked holes in the condoms, and she ended up getting pregnant, and then she broke up with him and she had an abortion. And when he found out she was dating other people, he phoned her and said, don't use the condoms in the nightstand because I tampered with them. And that's what led him to be caught. If he hadn't actually been enough of a gentleman to phone her and let her know that, he would never have been caught. Okay? And he was found guilty of aggravated sexual assault. The sexual assault portion of it was based entirely on the fact that she did not give informed consent to the act. She gave consent to an act of protected sex, and the act that it ended up having with him was not protected. She did not give informed consent, right? That is what made it rape. That's what made it sexual assault. The aggravated portion was because she got pregnant, and the pregnancy and subsequent abortion was considered to be an injury. But even if she had never gotten pregnant and had no injury, it would still have been considered to be sexual assault because she did not give her informed consent to have unprotected sex.
Okay, and it's sexual assault when you do it to a man too.
Yeah, but the judge stipulated in his decision through a series of meandering kind of weird things that don't make any sense in the context of that decision as to why it was sexual assault based on informed consent, as to why this could not be used as a precedent for men to accuse women of sexual assault for lying about birth control.
Well, thank you.
I agree. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that fucking wonderful? It's sexual assault when a woman does it to a man, when a man does it to a woman, but it's not sexual assault when a woman does it to a man. Oh my goodness, where have I heard that before?
My point is, we're pretty equally shitty guys, so please stop blaming girls for all your problems and use your brain.
And women, please stop blaming men for all your problems and use your brain and not the legal system and not the fucking criminal justice system and not the child support system and not the fucking everything that you have at your disposal. Don't use the loaded gun that the police gave you and the freaking system gives you and says you have impunity to pull this trigger whenever you want and ruin some man's life. Don't do that. Take responsibility for your own actions. If you regret sex, don't accuse the guy of rape the next day. If you fucking get pregnant and decide against his wishes that you're going to keep this baby, even though before you got pregnant, you both decided you weren't ever going to want to have kids, right? Don't stick him for child support. Oh my goodness, take responsibility for your own fucking choices.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what can I say? I don't think any of us really want to say that men and women are to blame. Well, I mean, look at feminism. Puts all the blame on men for society as it is, or almost all of it, or the majority of blame. I think that we want to actually recognize when women do wrong and have that recognized. And I mean, because I don't think we've argued at any point that men are incapable of rape or domestic abuse or reproductive coercion or being awful human beings. What we are arguing is that it is equal between the genders. And I'd also like to point out that although I didn't initially watch her video, Karen did. I didn't.
No,
I did.
I didn't watch the whole thing.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I
I actually felt bad for a second because there were people in the chat who were saying, well, she said some wonderful things about men's rights. Well, she said, yes, circumcision is horrible. Yes,
their children.
Men should be able to parent their children. But a lot of these things are like, at some point, you have to actually be willing to sacrifice something, like to step out there and do it, and just advocate and take up the mantle of advocating. And it's great that she says it. And you know what? That's fine. You know, if she just wants to champion those particular items on the male rights agenda, that's fine. That's her choice.
No, like a lot of us are single issues people. There's an entire group of women, including Judith Grossman, amazingly enough, who are interested in, restoring due process on American college campuses when it comes to men accused of sexual misconduct, right? There are people who their sole freaking focus is fathers' rights. There are people whose sole focus is anti-circumcision, getting that, completely stigmatized and off the fucking agenda, off the table, and protecting boys under the law. There are people who take a single issue approach, and I absolutely admire them because they are able to focus all of their energy on this one thing. And I think that we need lots of people like that. But most of the time, the people who are advocating to end circumcision are not shitting on the people who are saying, men should really have a right to decide whether they want to be parents. And having sex, if having sex for a woman isn't, a contract to become a mother, then it shouldn't be a contract to become a father.
Why don't you take it off the screen share there, Karen?
Oh,
so people can see your final rants.
Oh, I don't want them to see it.
You're mucusy?
Oh, I'm like so full of everything. Okay, how do I?
Yeah, well, I just it's fine. If you want to be single issue, if these are the issues that you want to deal with, that's fine. but at least be informed. Don't present fallacies about the other issues. Don't present fallacies about domestic violence as it affects men. Don't present fallacies about rape as it affects men. Don't be completely fucking inconsistent when it comes to the right to separate sex from being a parent when it comes from men and women. Like, just, yeah, you're going to get called out on that. I appreciate all of what you want to do, that you want to advocate for not circumcising boys and parental rights for men. But it's like one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah, I think the problem that I have with her is that she really doesn't realize what is lying at the root of all of these issues, and what's lying at the root of the person who says, "Oh, that's fine, strap that baby to that circumstraint and just like slice off a portion of his penis," after you freaking dug under it and separated it out, like essentially digging somebody's fingernails off their fucking nail beds, right? And then just, yeah, go ahead and do that. No anesthetic needed. They cry for the first bit, but then they just sleep right through it, right? Oh, go ahead. That's fine, right? Okay. That's the same person who says, "Oh, yeah, no, you fucked some chick and now your life is completely ruined and you had dreams of becoming a doctor, but she's insisting she's going to keep the baby and she lied to you about birth control and she like completely trapped you in this." There was this one girl it was on a BBC program, and she's like, my mom had a baby and my sister had a baby and my friends had a baby. She had some weird North English accent, and I wanted a baby too, right? And so she just lied. She just lied and told her she was 15 and her boyfriend was 16, and she lied and she told him she was on birth control, and he got her knocked up. And then it transfers right to a clip from her mom, right? "I knew he wouldn't stand by her. I knew he was just such a scumbag, and he just broke up with her," right? Like, I wouldn't fucking stand by that bitch if I knew she'd intentionally trapped me into ruining my life at 16 just because her sister and her friend and her mom had babies and she wanted one too. Why would I fucking get into a lifelong relationship with this woman? No, it'd be like, milk me for my fucking child support. Just like reach your fucking hand in my fucking wallet every month. Go ahead, do it for the next 18 years, but you're not getting another fucking thing out of me because you lied and ruined my life.
You can advocate. You don't have to advocate for anything. You don't even have to care. Just don't spread misinformation and bullshit. And really, I would really suggest that she look at herself. As she was saying, the amygdala activates during sexuality for men, and that means there's something dangerous. And look at that. Just brave the world. Look at your shit-eating grin after you said that, and do some deep personal introspection as to why you look like that, why you made that expression. Because where I'm standing, that's really ugly. That's really fucking ugly.
It's a little telling, and
creepy.
Especially considering there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever as to what role that little bit of amygdaloid function plays in male sexuality. They don't know, right? And they know, one thing they do know is it's not part of male sexual arousal. It's part of male sexual motivation. And in my opinion, the more likely explanation for it is that it's because men often violently compete with other men for sexual opportunities, and that this is not men, but males in other species, and this is a remnant of male sexual response that dates back 2 to 3 to 6 million years, right? And back when we were a species that, when the females went into estrus, the males all started to kill each other. right? Wouldn't that be part of male sexual response? All of the females in estrus, all of them giving out all those pheromones, and all of the men ripping the shit out of each other.
Well, I don't know. It'd be pretty. Like I'm not even sure. I mean, most of the quote unquote violence in tournament species is pretty ritualistic. If you want to see tearing the shit out of each other, you have to look at the females, which is ironic. On this,
look at what the females do to the males. You absolutely do. The females in chimpanzees, right? That the 6 or 7 of them ganging up and jumping on that one male that pissed them off, and they're
biting his fingers off.
Chew his fingers off and like do all kinds of nasty things to him, and all the males just sit around because all the males are very violent against females there, right? All they do is just sit around with this look on their face like, I'm so glad that's not me.
I think this is the bonobos, but you know what? I think it's the end.
No, it's regular chimpanzees too. Common chimps do the same thing.
Okay, but it's like we're really like on 2 hours and 40 minutes, which actually was pretty good because I was thinking like 16 minutes. That's gonna be like 8 hours. But we did well. We did good. I think we did good.
Up into parts, did you?
Yeah, I was thinking of it, but we got through it. I think we did good. We probably will be accused of being catty and bitchy. I think that personally, if I were Brave the World, I would seriously take a good long look at myself with that sheeting grin.
Yeah,
and
no.
ask myself.
I really hate the idea that I'm catty and bitchy, because I do really like a lot of Brave the World's other videos that she's made, where she's done a fairly good job of criticizing feminism, at least for a sort of mainstream audience, a slightly less esoteric and informed audience. She sort of puts it all out there in a form that just regular people would be like, oh yeah, no, she's right. People who've never thought about it, but she hasn't actually gone in and looked at all of the drivers that are that are.
And also there's some red flags that I saw in the video, not just the shit-eating grin, but also the appeal to neonatony when she was arguing that men shouldn't have the right
term, neonatony. Not neoteny, but neo-Nazi, like neo-Nazism.
Yeah, but that's a way of manipulating people into agreeing with something that's not to their best interests.
Oh yeah, no, and oxytocin too. You spray a little oxytocin under somebody's nose, and they really trust you.
And also, I was
like twice as fast.
One of the reasons why I did this, one of the reasons why I suggested this, was the casual dismissal of male rape victims. And also that there was a little passive aggressive jab at myself and I believe the honey badgers in general when she said, well, I'm a woman and I bring attention to male victims of rape. And in honor of what she said about that, I'll just do this now. All right. I am actually a woman who has spent 15 years to do whatever I can to bring attention to male victims of rape. If you also feel like victims of social problems that aren't actually, like, it's not a situation where men are responsible for it, they're also victims of it, they're more likely to be victims of it, that includes domestic violence. It
includes online harassment.
Yeah, includes online harassment. If you also want to bring attention to these issues and help me bring attention to these issues, then do consider donating to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. I've done this for 15 years and I don't plan to stop, but you can always help me out and help my voice get louder and help Karen's voice get louder and help the rest of the Honey Badger's voices get louder for advocating for the invisible victims of these issues. And you know what? I'm not going to fucking apologize for it. I'm not going to apologize for it. Good night.